evening.
A little.
Good evening. Welcome to the Foxborough School Committee, our regular meeting tonight, January 6th, 7 o'clock. The agenda is as follows for this evening. 7 o'clock visitors, 7:10 approval of minutes, 7:15 teaching and learning highlights. How does professional development come alive? 7:30 ready school assessment certification. 7:40 proposed 2014-2015 FHS program of studies. 7:50 FY15 budget, continued discussion, Ms. Spinelli and Mr. Yukna, and details on the expansion of
Is that
the
physical education?
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Physical education at Foxborough High School. 8:15, preliminary discussion of FY15 capital improvement plan, Ms. Spinelli and Mr. Yukna. 8:25, FY14 budget update, Mr. Bill Yukna. 8:35, approval of the 2014-2015 school calendar, Ms. Spinelli. 8:45, other matters. So we will begin with visitors. Are there any visitors that wish to be recognized? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes. And we have the December 16th, 2013 regular meeting minutes. I had one change. I don't know if anybody else, just maybe I can get some feedback from the committee. At the very end, page 3, when we were talking about the Racino, and it says here, Ms. Adair asked Mr. Gray to get more information, which she will bring back to the committee. If I remember correctly, Mr. Gray was going to speak to the Board of Selectmen and then speak to the chairman, and then have the chairman contact me.
That's as I remember. it,
Okay,
too.
I just thought maybe that would be good to have that kind of specific information.
Okay.
And we'll obviously talk about it under other matters, but, yeah, which, should I reword it for you, or kind of, do you have? Okay.
Yeah.
So Ms. Adair asked Mr. Gray to get more information, and to ask him to,
Which he will pass on to the chair. The chair of the selectmen will contact you. Is
Okay.
how I remember it.
that sounds good.
The chair,
Yes.
selectman chair will contact school committee chair.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other changes?
Just on the, with the MSBA, I'm sorry,
Oh, yeah, please, go ahead.
thank you. I think I asked, and I need a little bit of a reminder, Bill, if you can, on
I'll answer.
how, huh?
Oh,
I'll
Bill.
answer, because Bill's going to be here about 7:30. He's at another meeting.
Oh,
But I'd be happy to answer.
I live in
look
an
over here.
imaginary world, and it's just all dreamy here for me. The MSBA present state pushes our movement on the two schools out, is that correct?
Well, on
I
the one
remember
school,
asking
we go
something like-
one at a time.
On
So-
Borough, yeah.
Yes, so we have to resubmit each round, and actually today I received from the MSBA the invitation to submit for the February and pass it along to Mr. Yukner to prepare the documents again. So I was at Borough this morning, Michelle and I spoke about that. So we'll be submitting within the next few weeks, actually, for the February round.
So if I may change the language to something like Steve Uden asked for a new state of timelines for the Borough School project, or inquired.
Well, we don't know, oh, you did?
No, I asked what that does to the timeline, that's all I asked, what it did.
Oh, I see.
I'm not asking for a change in the
see.
timelines, I'm just asking what the change was, if there was any.
So you want it annotated that you made that request? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah, yep.
I'll say Mr. Uden asked, that's where I stopped,
What the new timelines would be, given,
asked about,
Mr. Uden inquired about new timeline.
yeah,
that's.
given the results from the MSBA
Mr.
letter,
Uden.
or something like that.
Yeah, Mr. Human.
Thank you.
That's about new timelines.
And then I have nothing else, thank you.
Okay, so
Motion to approve with those two amendments?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Okay, teaching and learning highlights, Ms. Spinelli.
Yes, I would love to invite up, we have 3 of our staff members here, Ms. Karen Washburn, third grade teacher at the Borough, Ms. Darissa St. Germain, library teacher at the Borough, and Drew Gentile's grade 4 teacher at the Taylor. So very often we talk to you at this table about what we're doing for professional development and how many offerings we have and how we try to have a wide variety. But you don't often get to see what happens after those professional development opportunities. And these three have been working on a really interesting project. So we thought we would ask them to come and explain to you what the professional development opportunity was and how it has now impacted their classrooms, their work, and their students. So I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
Thank you. We first just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and share with you our experiences over the past few months. We were fortunate enough to attend a conference in Cambridge called the Mass New Literacies Technology Conference at the Microsoft Center, which was a week-long experience that allowed us to work with teachers from our district, other districts, technology specialists, administrators, for a whole week-long intensive course focusing on technological skills. What the conference itself focused on three major cornerstones: online collaboration, like for having students be able to communicate online and use technology tools to communicate to improve their education. Also focused on online comprehension skills and how to appropriately access technology and become good digital citizens. And it also focused on content creation, using new programs and allowing students to explore and to sort of show what they know using a variety of means. So we were really fortunate to go, and again, we thank you. One of the nice things, like I mentioned, was we were able to collaborate with other teachers from other districts. But I think we found a really valuable experience where we were able to work together. We're not in the same building. We often cross paths at PD days, but don't get to communicate. So we sort of took off on it and allowed us to communicate inter-school. And I think it's been a really positive experience. And
Yeah,
I'll let Karen tell
it was
you.
amazing. It was probably the best professional development I think I've ever attended before. It just blew my mind most of the days. But what it entailed was we had to get together in a team, and three of us teamed up, and we had to come up with a project that would use technology to really enhance the curriculum that we're already teaching. So the three of us decided we were going to focus on reading engagement and how we were going to have our students, again with that collaboration and creation and comprehension, we were going to get them to talk to each other online through blogging, and just sort of connect that bridge between these two schools and these two different grade levels. So later on in the future, they're going to go to middle school and they're going to be best buddies with these people that they probably normally wouldn't see. So our focus was on reading, and what we decided was we were going to create this book club. And the book club was going to have them creating book reviews, creating book trailers, like advertisements, kind of little videos, and also discussing and reviewing books with their buddies across town. So we were experiencing all these different great tools to use, and now we're bringing them back to our classroom and having our students use them.
So what we did was we actually created a Google website, and we called it Book Stash, to sort of catch the kids' attention.
The mustache thing that everyone
Yeah, the kids are all into the mustaches now, so that's acting as our hub. So we have a few things that we've been doing with the Book Stash website. All of the students are able to log on to the website. We have a few tools that we have put on there, like Kid Blog is one. We also have a couple more tools that we're adding as we go that we'd like the students to use, but mostly we just want them to be able to collaborate with each other. So we are hoping to move on from here. We
kicked off with.
Oh,
yes. Do you want to?
We kicked off by Skyping an author. We have been reading a nonfiction book to all the students. It's a book I've been reading for a few years now. So I read that to Karen's Washburn's class, and then Mr. Gentile read the book to his class so that all of the students were familiar with the book, and then we contacted the author, and we were able to have a Skype visit with the author.
So Drew's class came over to the borough, and we all sort of got together and we got to meet this author, Mona Kirby, and she answered all the kids' questions, and it was just this amazing experience where it was like, it was such a great kickoff because then all the kids got together, they got to know each other, but then they were also having this amazing time where they got to, speak to a real author. And the stuff that she said was amazing. She hated writing as a kid, and all the kids walked away from that like, oh my gosh, I can't believe
We had two
a published author said that.
One of the powerful moments there was one of the students stood and asked about how many times she had to write a book draft, and she said she wrote the book. She had 19 different revisions
Yeah,
before the
that
book was
powerful.
published, and I think that was a big wow moment for us. To
Yeah,
have.
it was a point on our
were
side
happy to
because we
hear
were like,
that.
see, we
Makes
just have
that
to
one or
rewrite.
two revision look
Yeah.
Yes,
pretty, like a good deal.
Yeah.
17, 19 times.
We'd
is a
like to
lot.
show you our website that we created.
What was the name of the book?
Oni the Mail Pouch Pooch.
It's a true
It's
story.
a true story about a dog that rode the railways, and he sort of guarded the U.S. mail unofficially. He decided he was going to do that himself. So a lot of the kids wanted to know, was the dog still alive?
Yeah.
Of course not, because it was in the 1800s. So, but
But the children actually wrote
It's so real.
amazing and asked amazing questions
Yeah.
of this author.
Oh, that's such a cute icon.
So here's our site.
We mustache you.
Yeah, Drew did that with his iPad. But we didn't grow those for that. So basically, you like that, Steve?
Yeah.
So basically, from here, we're able to jump to any of our classroom websites, so the library website. They can jump into the blog where it's like a safe environment. It's a kid-safe, kid-friendly blogging platform.
they were able to collaborate on questions they would like to ask the author, and then after the visit, they were then able to collaborate on how the visit went.
So actually, that's a little video.
Can we play
It's
the
like a
video?
quick. Do you want to see it? Or?
Yes, please.
Just go ahead. Yeah.
And then you might want to make it longer.
What's the sound?
Talk a little bit different. But I used to teach elementary school, and I was the elementary school librarian for a long time in Texas. But now I'm a professor. Maryland is south of Massachusetts. If I were to take the train from Maryland to Massachusetts, it would be about an 8-hour train.
So we're sort of moving forward now. We're going to have the kids blogging, and it's going to continue throughout the year where they'll be blogging about the books that they're reading in class. But we also have a new sort of, common project coming up next. Jerissa has
There's
an
another
amazing
book that we'd like to have both classes read. Again, it's The Fantastic Flying Books of Morris Lesmore, and that is right here. And there is a link for a short film that actually won an Academy Award that was based off of this book. And it's a great book. So we're trying to do a lot of common things with the classrooms just to get them all, into collaborating with each other and across town.
And as we to sort of wrap up, but at the end of, we had a final meeting in December where we got to go back to the they call it the Nerd Center.
Perfect.
And when we went back for our final meeting, we had a chance to present some of this to the people that we worked with in August. But we also, were able to watch 10 presentations at least on all different types of ideas and concepts that were amazing. So, one of the teachers that runs the conference each year had asked us, he's going to keep in contact with the teachers of Foxborough. 'Cause
right.
we had a pretty good
He's gonna do a
representation
case
there.
study.
And he wants to follow us and sort of have us keep in touch with him and communicate with him that way, so that as of next year, he can see where we've gone, and we're in contact with the Ahern teachers and the high school teachers that were also there. So
Nice.
it's another big, I think,
Yeah,
step
such an
that we
awesome
took, which
opportunity.
we were happy to have, so.
This is actually the third or fourth summer that we've sent teams there. You're limited to the number of people in your team, but this is at least the third.
the
Because I know our principals are not, most, if not all of our principals have gone in the past.
Yeah, I
And,
know most did.
I think 3 solid years or 4 that we have sent teams, 3. So we're going, this will be our 4th summer
And
that
we
we've
met-
sent teams to the new literacies.
Yeah, we met our
Yeah.
new technology integration
That
specialist
was how
at
we
the
met her.
conference that week too, which was nice.
That's
Darlene
right,
was there, so we were able to
Darlene.
set off the year
It was
like by getting to
awesome.
work with her right away, and now we've been
I
establishing
think
a
that
lot
was
of
her
our
first
lessons.
week, actually.
She
It
actually
was.
assisted us
She
with the
wanted to go
Skype
with
visit.
Can't
Oh,
think of a
right,
better way
yeah.
to start.
She helped us set up the Skype,
Yes.
which is great.
So eventually, I think
pretty
our,
exciting.
our idea is that we'd like to incorporate all of, I know this is stretching, but we'd like to incorporate maybe all of 3rd and 4th grade throughout the district and do sort of a together book club. That's our sights for the future.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to be the obvious next question, I think, especially with your principals in the back. I wondered if they'd already figured out how they were going to expand this between or beyond your classrooms. So that's the
I
plan.
think once we get really like up and running and continue what we're doing, we'll be ready to start spreading it.
What a great program.
Yeah.
It's really been great. I think that it just started that many years ago. It's so relatively new, run by Microsoft. And for people to give up a week in the summer and go to Cambridge, spend every day there going to a course is pretty good. But we've gotten nothing but positive feedback, so we send a team every single summer.
It was like summer camp for us.
It was fabulous.
All a bunch of like-minded educators sort of getting together and just sharing ideas, and it was just really positive and just the best. It was the best.
The 21st century skills, creativity, collaboration, communication.
Yeah, comprehension.
Comprehension.
They
I mean,
brought it all in, and they would like
Yeah.
introduce something to us and then let us run with it.
it's awesome.
Unbelievable.
Sounds really exciting. It's, your energy can be felt, you know, and
It's
just
very-
your enthusiasm. So I'm sure you've passed that along to your students.
It's just good to see that the things we do have an
Yeah.
impact, because we have
Right.
people who really do turn around and use whatever it is they're learning, and they're obviously continuous learners themselves. And the library looks fabulous on the video. The library at the Borough, if anybody hasn't seen, they rearranged it, and it looks just better than ever, I'm telling
Thank
you.
you.
I tell her that every time, so I'll stop now. I'm up to about
It's a good place
You
to
can
be.
keep saying
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank
for
you so
coming. We
much.
appreciate you
That was
taking the
awesome.
time this evening.
Great job.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right, we're going to move on to Ready School Assessment Certification. Dr. Burdos.
Right, we'll have our 3 elementary principals come forward to the guest table. I'll give them a chance to come up. This is,
It's a nice tie.
I was going to say, he should stand up and show off that tie.
Oh, I love the tie. Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
not even March 2nd.
It's a reversible one, too.
Oh, it's on the other side?
What's on the other side? Another,
Dr. Seuss, one fish, two fish.
of course. Wow, it goes a long way.
It does.
I'm sure Mr. Regan is jealous.
well, I will start by first congratulating the 3 elementary principals, and they will introduce some of their team members in a few minutes for being certified as Ready Schools, which is a fantastic accomplishment. It's something that has been in the works for 2 years. We, as a recipient of the full-day kindergarten grant, needed to pursue, in order to have quality full-day programs, an accreditation program. And NAEYC, the National Association for Young Children, is one of them. And based on what the Department of Ed has learned over the number of years in that program, they then put into effect 2 other programs that were considered alternatives because of being public schools. And the Ready School Assessment was one of those. So we took, over the last 2 years, as our Early Childhood Committee, which We have principals, teachers, ed assistants, myself on that committee. We looked at those two alternatives in addition to the NEAYC, studied those for a good year, and then looked to see which one was really the better fit for us based on our needs. And with the work of that committee, after all of that time, we decided that the Ready School Assessment really would meet our needs best. And it is a program that allows us to really do a self-study, and it has 8 different dimensions, and those dimensions that it focuses on are leaders and leadership, transition, so students coming into our kindergartens, teacher supports, effective curricula, engaging environments, family, school, and community partnerships, respecting diversity, and assessing progress. So we had over 30 different indicators to go along with those 8 dimensions that we had to provide evidence for, and we involved not only teachers, paraprofessionals, but community members and parents in this self-study. And we had to provide evidence for every single one of those things, and then come to the second step, which was to score ourselves on a consensus tool that is an online profile. And the goal was to have a 3.5 in each of those dimensions, which we did not reach in the beginning, except for in a couple of different ones in different schools. And then we needed to go and do that work. But before we could do any of that, we had to have training in all of this. So really, to back up, the first step was High Scope, which is in Michigan. We had a trainer that flew out from Michigan, spent a full day with all of us to do the training. Then we, after the training, collected all the information, and then she came back out, did a site visit based on what we had. We then identified areas where we needed to work, which they're going to talk about specifically, and then had another site visit that ended. So it's been a 2-year process. A lot of work, and it's the leadership of the principals that have made it really happen. So I'm going to turn it over to them so they can tell you their firsthand experience.
So the first thing we just want to start off with is the teams themselves. And as Amy said, we did have a committee in place, and the makeup of that committee included parents, community representatives, teachers, assistants, administrators. So, and it was a successful team. So we wanted to keep that makeup, the composition similar for each of our RSA teams. So many of the members of that team then transitioned onto each of the 3 RSA teams, although we did have to recruit some too to keep some balance on the team. So I do, we all do, want to thank the team members who put in so much time during this process. For parents, we had Margaret Hassman, Jen Foley, and Selena Coate. Community members, Linda Marzakowski and Patty Moore. For staff, we had some who are here tonight. So Shelley Wainrib, Jen Cronin, and Elizabeth Bean. Samantha Ballard, Kelly Grinnell, Meg O'Connor, Carrie Sturdy, Michelle Reardon, and Drew Gentile. And also, the 3 of us wanted to thank Diana Parr, Diane Casilli, Allison Mello for supporting all 3 of the elementary teams, and especially Amy, too, for her guidance and support throughout the whole process.
Through the process, and Amy touched on this a bit, it originally began with a full-day training where a national trainer came out to work with all of those members that Michelle just mentioned. Because that was over a year ago, our teams have expanded, so not every member was able to take part in the full training, but they were given a subsequent training, not by the national trainer, but by our local teams. After the full day training, each team was asked to go through the booklets, the hand booklets, and start scoring themselves. And it was really a self-assessment tool to identify where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses, and really who are we, based on those 8 elements that Amy had indicated. After going through that self-rating scale, there was then a site visit, and this was really just a confirmation visit of where they would look at things and say, your numbers are either you're inflating yourself a little too much, or like Michelle, you might be a little too tough on yourself, and your team needs to look at this a little differently. They also would give us recommendations of what you need to make for changes that's going to help make this process easier, and that whole ideal is really to improve your school. So each of us had our own site visits with our own teams present. They gave us some feedback, great conversations. Mike will go into a few more of the details about the site visits. After that became the real work of our committees, which was the reflection and the ongoing meetings of saying what are the goals that we want to set forward for our teams and what really needs to take place to make sure that we have ready schools. And with that idea of saying what do we want the schools to look like for all of our children. that naturally led into our focus on some improvement areas. At that point, one of the pieces that was quite a bit of work, and it was, I think, a little surprising to at least me, probably, I think it surprised all three of us, but me a bit more, is the amount of evidence that we needed to gather. During the training, they were very clear about stating that it doesn't count unless you have documentation of it. So each one of us filled 8 binders. I want to say there were over 1,000 pages in these binders of just evidence to document the things that we do here in our schools. And when I say we, I don't mean the three of us. It's all of our schools and all of our support staff, whether it's central office to our bus drivers, of what happens, of what do we do to prepare ourselves for our children and to make it the best school possible. Again, after all this work of the committee, we then have to reevaluate, go through these 8 binders again, looking at each one of these indicators, and then score ourselves again. Again, looking for that magic number of a 3.5 that you mentioned before. That's the threshold of where you have to be above a 3.5 on a 4-point scale to reach the Ready School criteria. Following that is a confirmation visit again. So another site visit where they walk around, they review our binders, and again, Mike will talk about the site visit process. But that's a little bit about the process itself. It's really about giving us a vehicle and a manner in which our team works together and talking about what are the things we do well and what are some areas of improvement.
It was interesting. Many years ago, sort of on a personal level, I felt that when MCAS came along as a high school graduation requirement, the grade that had the most impact is kindergarten. And it's sort of borne out because everything's been pushed down. We have to get the students ready earlier and earlier. And this process really, I think all 3 schools and everybody who was a part of it really helped us improve. And it started with the site visits. They established a baseline at each of our respective schools. A representative from the Ready School Assessment Company came out. They did in-depth interviews with us. They did a tour of each building. They looked everywhere from, the amount of student work up on the walls and the purpose behind that to, is the school physically safe, coats and things. And also what we found as principals and I think as teachers, each team member, obviously focusing on student learning. What was the impact with the curriculum and making sure. And as Pete alluded to, it just wasn't answering. We had to provide the documentation, which for some of it was, readily available. Others, it really required us to dig and reflect upon what we were doing. And I think each school we grew as a result of that. So the first visit really was just that baseline, coming around, visiting, talking with each of the committee members at our respective schools, interviewing us. We filled out questionnaires that we gave back to them. After they left, they gave us about a week or 2 later, they sent it to Amy in each of our respective schools, a little assessment of what they found was going well and also what areas we need to grow. So in conjunction with the assessments that we did of the different indicators and their feedback, we then developed action plans at our respective schools. And continuing a year-long process, we found additional data, we found where we wanted to grow. We looked at other schools, we reached out to preschools, not just at the borough, but actually private preschools as well. So that piece of it really caused us to expand past some horizons that we might not have otherwise done. Some takeaways for each of the schools, and it's nice because as a district, we grew stronger. We increased the communication with the preschools. As you said, we actually created a new form for our incoming kindergarten students that we have their existing preschool teachers complete. So our kindergarten teachers have a wealth more of information now than they used to have before about what the child can and can't do when they're coming to us. Also, what came of this, we thought about our students who speak a second language at home. And we realized that, we needed to improve some of our efforts. And Debbie, very quickly, listening to some of the feedback that we had almost overnight, it seemed, we had the capability on our school websites and across the district to translate to different languages. And we also realized when we were sending home some notices to students as well, that we wanted to have that home, in their native language. We also, as I mentioned earlier, talked about the student work, and it really caused reflection about trying to find that right balance about what's being displayed, what's motivating to a child, yet that sensory input and output, that it's not too distracting to the lesson and to the environment. And another piece of this too, it just wasn't kindergarten. This actually required us to look all the way up through 4th grade as well, and they went into all the different classrooms through all the grade levels. They went into special education. They wanted to see how we were inclusive. And the feedback that we got, in the post conversations that we had, for all 3 schools, and the district as a whole was outstanding. I think, as I said at the beginning, I truly feel that we're stronger because of this. It really had us, reflect and put some things in place that we might not have otherwise. Questions?
Sounds like a lot of work and a lot of collaboration and teamwork that went into this.
We were going to bring all the binders and dump them.
They don't want any more after they did my evaluation that way.
I have a question. How long is the certification good for?
3 years.
3 years.
And then you,
We go through this process again. One of the things that the three of us were sharing ideas throughout, and we were meeting regularly, talking about the things that we were learning, so we can learn from each other. One idea that really worked well that we actually took from Michelle and tweaked a little bit was the idea of any new paper that we added after the first visit, we added on a different colored piece of paper in the binder. We shared this with when the site visit came, and they actually decided that they're going to recommend that in the future. Since that visit, we're now turning everything over to the same color now, because that was the approved version. And now over these next 3 years, as we add new documentation, taking things out, the changes will be on a new color, and that way it's easy to tell where our changes have taken place.
Great idea.
what goes on between when you become certified and then it lasts for the 3 years? Is there a process in between that you'll be getting ready for the next certification? Like, I know it took 2 years. I'm thinking about, like, I work at a hospital, we have the Joint Commission, and there are things that you need to do before you get accredited by that agency, and I'm just wondering if it's similar in education.
Well, a couple of different things. One, we'll continually reflect on the areas that we made changes and how those are working and if we need to make more. The other part is because it is a requirement of the full-day kindergarten grant, which is what funded these different trainings and bringing in the trainer from Michigan for that, we have to report out in the grant annually. What have we done, and what are we continuing to look at, reflect on, and then what are our goals for each year? So there is an ongoing piece, although the certification will be renewed 3 years from now. But we will continue working on it on an ongoing basis.
Awesome.
I think this was a great experience because I think, and that's why I wanted to make it its own agenda item, not only because I just value the hard work that all these people did and the teams, but we often hear about high school accreditation, and having outside agencies or companies come in and, have standards and have you evaluate yourself against the standards, and then having outsiders come in and evaluate you against the standards. And I don't think really the public realizes that we do this at other levels, and that this process of looking at standards for all of our systems and what are we doing and how are we going, how do we think we measure up, and what advice do independent evaluators have for us does go on at other levels. So that's why we wanted to come to the committee and inform you about what really does go on, because so many things do go on that we don't have an opportunity to talk about. And this is one thing that they did as a team that really, really had some high impact for our schools that we believe will have lasting effects on how the schools operate.
Well, it's interesting to me because I think of our community schools as such an asset to our town, and yet this is to me an example of our focus on continual improvement.
Right.
So that's terrific, really great.
We've got the
Thank
teachers
you
that
very
came,
much.
that are on the team, sitting back there too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
A lot of work and well-deserved.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, we're going to move on to proposed 2014-2015 FHS Program of Studies. Ms. Myers.
I'd like to invite Ms. Myers-Pacla and Ms. White, Director of Guidance, up to talk about their recommendations for changes in program of studies. And this, as you know, if there's a substantive change in a course, curriculum or program, that you vote to adopt the changes. So that's what they're here for, as this is an annual event. So welcome to the annual event, Program of Studies.
Thank you. You have in your packets our abbreviated version of the Program of Studies, because we would be killing a lot of trees if we pre-printed everything that's in it. So we're really only just highlighting those pieces that are here. On your very first page where it talks about the changes, and it says new courses for 14 and 15, and it mentions the AP Studio Art and the engineering course. They're technically not brand-new courses. Our AP Studio Art is the portfolio course that has been an ongoing course that we've had. Through reflection over the past 2 years, the art department really wanted to step this up for our students to be able to submit a portfolio for judgment. And it's quite a lengthy descriptor that is there, so that our students, again, have that opportunity, giving one more opportunity for our students for advanced placement. In the engineering, we're very excited about. This is a brand-new curriculum, really, that we are looking at and that we are planning on implementing. And what's different about this particular curriculum, of which I believe you also received a copy of the program, is that it does give the students an opportunity to look at the various different types of engineering and to get a taste of each of those. The other really lovely piece of this is that this particular program is also on the track toward becoming an AP program as well. So we luck out in the fact that this program is a tried and true program that is currently being implemented in various places in the United States. And again, it is already looking to meet the AP requirements. So, we're hoping it's almost that 2-for-1 in many instances. So the write-ups that you have here are both here. So again, more of a rewrite and a revision of what we're currently doing in our curriculum.
Now, a quick question. On the engineering course, that's a typo. It's 1 credit, not 0.1.
Yes, it should be 1, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
I meant to,
Oh, yeah,
meant to have before the meeting, I forgot.
Thank you. I did notice that earlier today when I was rereading again. Then within our music department, we're always trying to expand, if we can, the offerings that we can give to our students. And 2 courses that really took off last year with students coming back and saying, we would love to take like more, or a part 2 of it, were the guitar class. So this is a Guitar 2 class, which is a continuation of Guitar 1, and then the music technology course as well. So 2 more elective offerings for our students. And also, too, we're very, very pleased that our TV and video production classes are also classes that students are asking for more of. So again, Jim Callahan, God bless him, he is willing to take that on, and so we are looking to make an advancement in both the TV and the video production with the 2 courses that are listed there.
Very exciting.
We have a couple course title changes, so that's also listed on that next page, that our CBAD is going to become Graphic Design 1 and 2. The same courses, just a different title, really what's more applicable right now for the here and now by the teachers who are doing. And in our math department, again, the engineering, as we mentioned, will become the engineering. And in the music department, our jazz choir CP will become vocal jazz workshop CP. So just a change in what they feel is just more applicable in name for what is happening within those courses. So those are the new courses.
These are exciting courses.
We're very excited.
They're very interesting.
Diverse.
Yes, from the engineering to the guitar, music technology. And that's a fast-growing field, too.
Oh.
So these are really...
you're making your own music.
You are.
And
And it was so fabulous last spring.
recording it.
Yes, Mr. Piper had invited us in, a few of us within, on the staff who were available to go in and to listen to the student groups. And they had a project whereby they needed to compose a song. And it was really more of a senior focus because they needed to compose a song about graduation, moving on. And the students could go out into the building. They could ask for guest singers. They were mixing their own music. They were putting it together. It was fabulous. They asked us to vote on it, and every single one of the songs got a #1 vote from all of us. I mean, we couldn't decide. They were just, it was wonderful. And that was one of those classes. And when I took a look at the diverse kids that were in there, some of those were kids that have never probably done a thing with music since they, maybe took an instrument in the middle school. And here they were back into really something that I think is so important to really being well-rounded individuals, and that's having that appreciation of the arts. And here's one example of that being able to happen.
Now that we have the new music technology lab at the Ahern,
Yes.
you're going to have more kids coming up with even more experience.
And the guitar class was unbelievable, too. As I was sitting in there, I thought, oh, my goodness, as I'm watching, again, who's there. Some some of those students had some experience, and some of those students had absolutely no experience on a guitar. And to see what was happening that way was just, it just blows you away when you see what these kids are doing. So.
What I love, I give you so much credit for, is the things that are really advancing student learning and addressing the interests and becoming popular. You're not just saying, oh, I'm glad that we're offering them. You're looking to then offer the advanced next level course so that they continue that interest. So I give you so much credit for that, for not just saying good enough, but what's the next step for those kids, because that's what's really important for that student.
That's what we're doing. We're listening to what the kids want, you know what I mean? They're coming in and say, can you offer this? And then we look into it and we're able to with the staff, so it's good.
And as their capabilities grow,
Absolutely.
we have to grow.
So are we dropping courses to allow these?
No.
That's amazing, isn't it?
And we have to say, you know, there may be some electives that will go lower in number, or there may be some electives that maybe don't run in a given year. We have to take a look at that as we continue. But we also have some electives that we know that are just so overcrowded, because there are teachers who will just say yes, 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 and we've got, 30, 32, 35 kids in a classroom because they have a love of whatever that happens to be. But this also now opens up maybe for some of those other students to say, wow, I can take part 2 because part 2's there. So, it's going to be that whole give and take and that balance. And we evaluate every year, and the department heads through the building leadership, we take a look at the electives and say, what do we need to keep in? Do we need to retire something or put it on hold for a year? But right now, we're looking just to go right ahead with what we have.
Great.
Do we need a motion? Yes.
We'd love a motion
Accept.
to accept
Program of studies?
or approve, however you like to word it.
Yeah.
Approve, accept or approve. I think I actually looked it up and it said vote to adopt, but we don't usually use that word. I looked up, like, what does it really say in the policy guidelines, and it said, vote to adopt changes in curricular program, but I think adopt, approve, or accept are all the same intent, so.
I'll make a motion that we adopt or approve.
Like it.
Adopt and approve and accept.
Adopt, approve, accept, and endorse all the recommendations for the new courses for 2014 through 2015, and with appreciation to, and I'm noticing that through all of these courses, there are either intense or areas of 21st century skills that are needed. And that's something I have a likeness to. So I appreciate that in the curriculum development that you've presented here. So my motion stands as on the floor.
Do I have a second? All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Did we cut you off mid-presentation?
Oh, we did?
No, just
Did
the
we? I
the
said, did
last
we?
page, page 4.
Oh, gosh.
So this is important on page 4, so thank you. I will accept every one of your.
Katie runs a quick meeting.
Yeah, that's great, but I appreciate every one
Did
of
we
those
not have voted
verbs.
on
We'll
this
take
yet?
those
Is
No,
it
no,
verbs.
that's good. They were at the end of the courses, so
We'll
that was
take those
good.
verbs and we will accept them all.
They are not
Terms of
going to
art.
let us retract them.
One of the conversations that has been had, and I brought it up, I know, very early on at one of our school committee meetings in conversation, and that's the fact that we were looking at 22 credits for graduation, which, when you look at the number of credits that a student has available to them, over the course of 4 years, they could fail almost a year's worth of courses. And that just is not acceptable in anybody's book, and we know that, and the majority of our students do not. The majority of our students are passing, and passing with flying colors, all of the classes that they are participating in. But that is one piece of it. The other piece of it is that the requirements now, at the bare minimum for our state schools, have moved math from a 3-year requirement for college and career readiness, that portion of it as well, to a 4-year requirement.
You have to have 4 years of
4
math.
years. Now, a significant majority, 90-plus-ish, it's a very small minority of students that are not taking 4 years of math. So this is not a huge, really, hurt for anybody or anything that's unusual, because our students are already taking these classes, but we really felt that it was important for us to also raise the number of credits that a student is expected to have and to receive as they graduate. So the one change is the math had been 3. It is now 4, and as a result, that brings it up to the 23 credits. And again, phasing in, so we would begin with the class of 2017.
Okay.
So you would like a motion to approve the course credit requirements.
Yes.
Do I have to re-say that?
Reflect a total of 23 credits for graduation.
For
That's a
graduation.
state mandate.
Not a state mandate
No?
for the number of credits, that's a local mandate. But what the state is now, and you can probably articulate this better than I, but to attend a four-year state school, university, college, in Massachusetts, and really just about in every state, it matters
You have
not.
to have a
You
four-
have to have,
Okay.
they're looking at
I see.
4 years.
Okay, so
And it's
to make
really
them-
4 years of every major subject area.
Make sure we put them in the best position possible for not narrowing their possibilities.
Okay.
Right.
Katie, I have a question just before we.
Yeah.
These 6.75 credits per year, forgive me, but is that a change as well?
Yes, actually,
Okay.
thank you. And we can discuss that a little bit more, because the 6.75 would be attached to the PE portion if there is that increase in it. If there's not an increase in the PE, then it would be the 6.5.
Right.
And that would remain the same. So right now, we're just looking at that increase in the 23, and then that other portion will be depending upon budget and what you folks decide after your discussions.
So we could
You're
hold
welcome.
that vote till June, January.
January.
22nd, 23rd.
The next meeting.
Yeah.
The 27th.
Or
3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that
January
would probably be the
27th.
good.
I'll remember to bring that back.
Okay.
So we'll let the 6.5 stand for now and
Yes.
and just make sure we.
It's in there just
discussed
kind of
it.
for printing purposes for us, and we wanted to make sure it was there for you folks.
Diana, would you just say another word or two, similar to how you just did about the 4 years of math, about the 23 credits for graduation? I think what you said earlier is that's more in line with what other schools are doing, or what higher education is expecting? Or
Yes.
How do we, I want you to put that in some kind of context for us.
Do you want to help
Well,
articulate that?
it's both of those, to be honest with you. When we looked at the courses that we require here, most of our students graduate with 26 or 27 credits.
Okay.
And when we were saying that they only needed 22 to graduate, they were like, so can I take off my senior year? No, it's not. It's just that was our minute. So we just thought that since the state was kind of up in the ante with the requirements to get into college, it was a good time for us to up it as well. Yeah,
So the
that-
university system,
yes.
the state university system, puts out what their minimum criteria is, what they're looking at for students, what they consider students to have, or what is necessary to be college ready. And so it is the 4 years of English, which is a state mandate anyway. Then we have the
Now it's 4 years of math.
the 4 credits for math. Our science are 3 years of science, 3 years for social studies, of which we have to take the US. Again, that's a mandate by state. It's not a university suggestion. We also have the minimum of 2 years of a world language, and I try to emphasize that with students all the time. You need to have 3, if not 4 full years of language. But we're still at the 2 because that's, again, the universities are saying that. The PE requirement, again, we'll be talking about that. There's some law on that. And the health piece of it, and then our electives are what would round out the rest of it. So the university system has shifted and has changed somewhat in the past couple of years as far as what they're asking for as minimum requirements for entrance for students to have.
Thank
So
you.
they've been asking for 4 years of math. This isn't really
This is
something
what,
new.
about 2?
No, this is new, that the.
2 years new?
Yeah. Now, in order to get into a university in Massachusetts, you need 4 years.
That's fairly recent, though.
Yes,
It
it's
used to
only,
be
it's
3.
only
2
been a
years?
couple years, so it is fairly new.
Okay, so just to kind of play the
Yeah.
other side, so that's what the mandate or the requirement is for state universities.
Exactly.
But our students are still, we're advising them when they're planning their schedule for, let's say, their senior year, to include this extra year of math.
Right.
As they're going to college.
And as we took a look, because we did take a look
We
to
did,
see,
yeah.
and I said, Laureen, please, can you look up and let's take a look at our graduates? How many students are lacking in another math course? And our numbers were.
Less than 10% of
Yeah.
our seniors don't take a 4-year math. Most of them, we encouraged them to take the 4-year. We didn't require, we
Right.
encouraged. Now we're going to require. Okay, so the wording on our part has changed a little bit, but most of our students took the recommendation and did take that 4th year of math.
And that fourth year of math could be anything. It could be that student that's taking that AP course, calculus, or the pre-calc, or stats. I mean, there's a variety of different maths, because I was not a math student. Give me the humanities, I wasn't the math person. So that, there are those choices that they can take and that they can make.
Yeah.
Just along those lines, not to put you on the spot, Lorraine, but roughly how many math electives do we offer? Knowing the emphasis on math and STEM education and,
Well, not really math electives.
Okay, choices towards the
we
four.
have the MCAS math, SAT math. We've offered the engineering in the past from the math department.
Stats.
Well, stats, I guess, could be an elective, because a lot of students take maybe calculus and stats, so I guess that would be their elective. But
It's a math course.
But it's a math course. I don't know if I'd call
Would
it.
SAT qualify
Yeah.
as an elective, or as for their 4th year of math?
No, it will not.
So
They
then
want a
that
harder
question
course
isn't
than that.
really,
No.
Bruce.
Now, the SAT math is a half year, and it would not require as part of the 4.
just curious, with all the emphasis on math
Right.
education these days and going through our program of studies,
'Cause
how
we asked
robust our
also-
portfolio is right now.
Because we asked also if maybe accounting would count as a math, and the state
Yep.
school said no.
Yeah.
In the engineering, even though it might be coming out of the math department, that wouldn't be counted as a math. So they gave us a
But I think
list
for the
of what would
purpose of what I was thinking, these are different.
What are the ones that we offer that count for the math?
pretty much everything else, the algebra, the geometry, the pre-calc, the trigonometry, the stats, the AP calc, the AP stats. I know I must be missing some, but
No,
yeah,
that's
pretty
fine.
much everything else.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so you need a motion to approve this
Approve the 23
Changes to the credits?
credits.
credits.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna move on to FY15 budget, continued discussion, Ms. Spinelli, Mr. Mukna, details on expansion of PE at FHS.
So our purpose in continuing the discussion is traditionally, this is the meeting where we continue the discussion from the presentation, the initial presentation in December, where if the committee has any questions or any areas for Bill or for me that you would like to have answered tonight or to put on a list to get back to either individually or as a committee for the next meeting, this is the time, like if there are other areas after you heard the preliminary presentation that you'd like us to gather more information or get back to you on, that's our first. And we knew that this PE position was something that we wanted to discuss in a more public manner, so that's why the lovely ladies are here to talk about that. So it's really the will of the committee if you'd like to talk about the general preliminary budget presentation, and if there's areas that you've been wondering about since the last meeting. I haven't heard anything specifically individually, but this is the time. If we know it now, we'll provide the information, and if it's something we have to go and research, we will, and then we can get on to the phys ed position, or you can reverse it. It's up to you.
I'll open it up to the committee to, if they have any specific questions about the budget.
Well, I think for reminders for ourselves and also for anyone who didn't see our last discussion, I think we characterize it, or I characterize it as kind of a vanilla budget. I know Steve and I think as representatives of the Budget Committee, had an opportunity to spend some time prior with Debbie and with Bill. And, just by way of recollection, I think the budget request was pretty, what I would call normal, if there is such a thing. I didn't think there was anything that really jumped at us last meeting. So
Right.
I know I personally don't have additional concern or question. I'm ready to move to the PE discussion, but
Okay,
I don't know about my colleagues.
all right, we'll
I
see
am.
none. You're ready? Okay, all right, then why don't we move to the PE?
Sure. So as part of that, as we usually do, we presented you in the packet with our, we call it informally, our additional budget priorities for consideration. Let's use the formal name. How about that? And that comes right after the budget update that Bill provided. So, sorry, got something in my throat. So this is what we've been doing the past many years, is that we create a list of prioritized items that we're also thinking about that are not present in the FY15 budget, so that you understand what it is we're thinking about and discussing at the administrative level, and also so that you can consider, you may have different priorities. So the things that we have talked about as an administrative team working together to develop that short list of other things that we want to be transparent about the future needs of the district. And those 4 things address goals and objectives in the strategic plan and our 2013-14 district goals that we share. And those 4 things are the 3rd elementary math specialist, so that we could have one elementary math specialist in each building. So if you remember, several years ago, we went many years with one person traveling among 3 buildings. Now we have 2 people traveling across 3 buildings. And yes, we would like to, at some point in the near future, get to one math specialist at each building so that they can serve the needs of the students who are ready for more advanced math learning. They can address the needs of the students who need more intervention, and the needs of the students in between, and also work professionally with teachers on the math curriculum and how it's delivered and methodologies that will result in stronger achievement, especially with the new National Common Core standards in math. We've also discussed at this table, and as the administrators in the district, a 3rd technology integration specialist. That's in our new tech plan that we discussed in the fall, so that we would eventually have 1 technology specialist working on the implementation of instructional technology in the classroom to result in a better delivery of the curriculum. 1 for the 3 elementary schools to share, which we believe is fine. We have that now. And our 2nd position that we have in the budget now would serve middle and high school. And eventually we would like 1 at the middle school and 1 at the high school. Because as you can imagine, those are our 2 biggest schools, and it'd be nice to have 1 person stationed at each school to work with teachers on the incorporation of technology into each of their curriculums and their contents. We have been talking about STEM and career and business ed growth. So we would like to see and when I say near future, I mean the next few years, an additional .5 business education teacher at Foxborough High School to accommodate the growing demand for business electives. We do, as we discussed at the December meeting, we do believe that there is, in addition to the engineering course, that the other expansion or enhancement, if you will, of what we do at the high school, that we are going to be able to accomplish in a cost-neutral fashion, is to take somebody, instead of teaching a math-specific course, to teach financial literacy electives so that we have more kids who are able to enroll in that elective. So that's something we can do for September, but that doesn't mean we're expanding the business electives in any way or being able to offer more than one section of some, such as business law or accounting or things that students would really want to take in the future. More students than currently are able to take them. They take them now. But we have our business education department is 1 teacher. So we'd like it to be 1.5. And eventually, we'd like to see more support for working with students and families at risk with the addition of a part-time additional social worker at Foxborough High School. We currently have 1, and there are a lot of more needs now, and we would like to eventually see that. We have prioritized those in the order in which we're interested in them, that we believe is the next biggest priority or the next area that would provide the most impact for students.
You know what I think is really interesting, the elementary math specialist, just coming off of us just approving this, the increase in the math that's going to be, the school is now requiring. So how are we going to support our students to maybe take that extra year of math when maybe they might not have? And certainly starting at the elementary, as we heard just from earlier, the kindergarten teachers that were here and talking about that in terms of the certification program. So I would like to have a discussion about this math specialist and how, whether this is the right year to do it. I think if it's not this year, then I think it's next year, because we need to prepare our students who are going to be taking 4 years of math. And I think, while there's a great number that are doing it right now, if this is a requirement, this is something that we're going to make sure that we can support them to do.
I think we have learned that the more we shore them up when they're younger,
right,
they will be able to achieve. I think maybe it'd be helpful, because we've had lots of discussions about this, like what's our next priority. I think it would be helpful to hear, because we actually, even though they're totally unrelated, we did sort of position in our discussions the elementary math specialist against the PE teacher at the high school. And so that is what we decided to put forward, and I think it might be helpful for you to hear from them about why that became the position that's in the budget and why this is on the priority list, although nothing's written in stone. So I think this was a tough one for us, and we had several discussions about it. So I think maybe that would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Physical education.
Well, PE, there's what do I want to call it? It's not a law, but it is in the education books, a regulation that our students should be taking physical education every year. It is not specified how or in what means that's going to take place or what that's going to look like, but it is certainly there. And we know that that's a push as far as wellness and PE is concerned. So with that, and taking a look at what we're currently doing, and certainly the wellness program as we have it now with the PE and the health is extraordinary. We're so fortunate to have that back, I believe, and to be able to maintain at least at that point when students are going from their really their sophomore year into their junior and their senior year, of maintaining that piece of that physical well-being. We're always thinking the academics, but we're really educating the whole child in many ways. And again, instilling those good pieces of what they really need to be healthy, and to be healthy in mind and in body. So for us, it was really
We have
this.
Janelle Erskine here, who's your
Yes.
K-12 wellness director.
So for all of us, it was really, we can keep talking about this and talking about this, but it's really there, and it's really a necessity and something that we really do need to put into place. And so we took a look at it. So Janelle, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add or go from there on it.
Yeah, so we looked at the schedule, and we could add 11th and 12th required for one semester. The kids would have it 3 times a cycle for half a year, and we'd be able to build upon the concepts that we're teaching them at the younger level. So in 9th and 10th grade, we introduce them to a variety of lifetime activities. Every third class, they have a fitness focus day where we teach them workout concepts and different ways that they can stay physically fit and active. So if we had them in the 11th and 12th grade, we could continue that as well as build upon it and offer some electives to them that could be more specific to things that they're interested in. Like they could take a group exercise elective, they could take a basketball elective if that's something they're interested in, personal training where they learn to build their own workout plans and use the fitness center, and just kind of reinforce.
Yoga.
Yeah, yoga, Pilates, Zumba, all of those things that they can use to be active for the rest of their lives. And all the research now is showing that the more exercise you get during the day, the more ready your brain is for learning. So it's going to benefit them throughout the school day, being more active and being in better shape than they are now. And if you look around, you can see as the kids stop having phys ed in the 11th and 12th grade, you can even see some of their body types changing, and you can see the effects right away from going from having it 3 times a cycle to not having it at all, especially the kids who are not involved in any type of sports or athletics.
So it is actually a state requirement that we require 4 years, and it doesn't say it has to be the full year, but that students take physical education for their 4 years of high school. We've never offered that. We've never made it available to students. So we just talked about the Ready School Assessment coming in, looking at elementary schools. So the state does come in and reviews a district every 5 to 6 years, and sure enough, right on time, this May starts the new 5-year coordinated program review is what it's called. So when we had that 5 years ago, that was actually a finding for Foxborough Public Schools, that we offered physical education and required it in grade 9 and 10, and that we didn't offer it other than as an elective in 11 and 12. So the remedy was that we have to track what activities the students are involved in that involve movement and wellness in grades 11 and 12 on an individual basis. So they could belong to a gym, they could belong to the Y, they could be in a sport, they could use the fitness center after school, they could have membership somewhere, they could do an intramural, for example, or that type of activity. So that's sort of how we meet the intent of the requirement without actually meeting the requirement. So our coordinated program review is coming around this May, and it is still a requirement, and we still don't offer it. So at some point, this is something that we have to address. So we decided the time felt right to now that we can't any longer say we're just not trying to address that. So this is an area that an outside agency or a Department of Education is saying we are required to do, and we need to at least show that we've considered making progress in that area.
So are you saying that this tracking our students to ensure that they are
that they do something
meets that requirement though right now?
That is the remedy that they'll accept if you don't require 4 years.
Do we look at the percentage of students who are involved in sports in 11th and 12th grade that satisfy this requirement?
Well, again, like I said, it's not really satisfying.
It doesn't satisfy the requirement. It's what they will accept as documentation if you don't meet the requirement.
Okay, but they'll accept that.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we have
Best way to say it.
every child has a sheet of paper in their folder, and we track what they do in 11th grade and 12th grade
Okay.
for physical activity. So that's how we're kind of
Do-
keeping
do
track.
we have a
However,
cri-
the tracking, though, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt, but that tracking is taking somebody's word. Yes, I have a gym membership, but there's no
Right.
guarantee that they're going,
That's
you
right.
know, or,
I'm a member of the Y.
yes,
Right.
or I go after school, but nobody's taking attendance regarding any of
What's the
those.
percentage of our students who participate in athletic sport? Do we know what that percentage is? Because that's, we're tracking that.
Right, yeah.
in
I should
11th
know
and
that,
12th
I'm
grade.
sorry, I don't have that
either.
figure.
No, I mean, I think that would be kind of, I'd be curious to see what that is. Just, is it 50%? Is it 80%? Is it, I mean,
Not 80.
I don't know.
yeah.
It declined in the 11th and 12th
Madam
grade.
Chair?
The numbers go down.
Yes, yes, Steve.
I'm pro math specialist, I won't lie, but I think there's something very important about today's health and physical fitness teacher, and that is that this isn't our father's Oldsmobile, right? That the
No.
adaptive activities required for special needs students are a whole new body of knowledge. Are they not for you? I think I'm correct there. And this is, you know, an important activity and an important function in the school department, I think. I was talking to someone, and we were talking about the different types of, like, say, special education or special abilities or special needs for students with limited abilities that our physical wellness department helps with. And I thought maybe it would be good, if we can here, to talk about and highlight some of those things to get out into the public, that it's not just, you know, the smaller children's activities running around playing kickball, but there's also more advanced things going on for the students that have special needs.
Well, I think when we spoke anyway, I'm going to have that as a teaching and learning highlight, actually.
Yeah,
to
that'd be
our-
great to
Our
see.
teacher, Sue Burrows, who does the adaptive PE, to come and explain what that is and how those services are delivered. At the high school level, I think one thing that this will accomplish for us, as Janelle was talking about, is that they have so much more services to students in the wellness department now. I give you all the credit, because it's not one ball and 25
Right.
students. It's not, well, if you know, everybody has to shoot around. They really do have choice, and they work as, the wellness teachers work in teams. I see Janelle running with a group of students while others are in the gym. I mean, they actually are able to have some flexibility during their classes. But what this would do for us is to offer some things for students who might not approach physical education in the traditional sense, or feel comfortable about it in the traditional sense. So if they want to go in a small group side class to work on, if they want to go in the fitness center, or they just want to go on a machine, or if they want to take a small group yoga, or any of those things, that we would, with the addition of another staff member, we'd have much more flexibility, because if you remember yourself in high school, we weren't all comfortable with the same things. I certainly didn't play a high school sport. I wasn't as comfortable even being in a big gym. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, that flexibility, or whatever your experience is.
Yeah, kind of to add on what you're saying, kind of like when we're in a gym class, it's like there are people that really just don't want to be there because they don't want to do any of the sports that we're playing. They don't play sports after school. After school, they just leave here and go do what they want. So it's like, I feel like having electives with like other, like Zumba, Pilates, all that is like, especially for me, because when not a lot of people go to the weight room because it's full of football players, and there are people that are there are people that, like, that are intimidated to go in there because it's like, what if, like, because I don't do all the same workouts, they're gonna think I'm weak, they're gonna think I'm not, you know, not like that. So that's like, so having the other electives like that would like, I feel like, help a lot of people, because there are a lot of people here that do have, say they want to work out but they don't have time. They do want to do, like, they want to go to Zumba classes and all these other classes, but they don't have time for it, or they just can't find the class for it. And it's like, I feel like with it being here, it would be so much easier, and I feel like a lot of people would get involved in it.
I do too.
Yeah, I
Wanna
think it
learn
would be
more
great
about
to have
stretching,
like,
for
options.
example. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it would be great to have the options because, like, me personally, I am awful at sports. So it's like gym is fine, but it's kind of like iffy. So it's like, I think it'd be great to have the different options because I would love to try to get involved with that other stuff.
Well, you'd be required to. I mean, this is a little, I think we need to frame this what it is. I mean, because, and I'm hearing what you're saying, it does sound great.
Yeah.
But this is gonna meet this regulation, so,
Yes.
you know, you're not gonna, you know, if it's Zumba and it's, you know, fits into your schedule, you're gonna have to take that. I mean, you know, you're gonna be in the class with other athletes, you're gonna be in the class with people that don't
But they'd have
necessarily.
more flexibility for choice within even that
Right.
period.
Right.
So there might be 3 teachers available in that period,
Right.
and they'd mix and match the students assigned to those classes. So that, in
Right.
other words, even now, they're not assigned to Miss Erskine, for example, another one assigned to
Right.
Mr. Neely. They're assigned to that period, and then they mix and match the students based on what they want to do. The
Right.
additional, or what's best for their next level of fitness, may I say. So this, if we just go ahead and require it, then they're going to have to be in the class with everybody else doing the same activity, which we know won't work, because we have lots of different types of students and readiness levels and
Right.
interests and preferences. And so I wouldn't be interested in requiring it without the other additional staff member, so that we can deliver more options for achieving wellness in their lives.
Bill?
The question you asked before, if you look in the original budget books that were sent out, there's about 340 kids in each of the 3 seasons that are playing in our teams.
300, thank you.
340 kids in
40
each
in each season, and you obviously realize that a lot of them are duplicating. So somebody might be playing in a fall sport, might be doing track, in the spring
So
sport.
maybe
So,
3, so
you know,
about a third.
So you're probably
Ish.
about a third, maybe 40% of the entire school base actually is in an organized team sport, which still leaves you a large group that's not, 60% that aren't getting that. The other thing that when we were redoing the through your support, and Janelle's kind of pushing for it, even in the girls' locker room, we built an entire area to satisfy what was being brought up as far as people not being comfortable potentially in the weight room. We gave them their own area that they can actually build out over time here and be able to have those classes in a more confined, closed, comfort zone within the girls' locker room area. And I think that we're trying to build all these opportunities, but we don't have the staffing to.
So we're not using that girls' area?
No, it's being used.
It's being used.
It could be used more.
It would be able to be used more with basically an additional staff member. There'd be another teacher on each period. So right now, say Ms. Petrovic and Mr. Neely are in the gym and they have 2 classes. There'd be a 3rd class in there now, which would allow us to have 3 choices of activities for the kids to do.
Maybe
as
somebody
opposed to
doing
2
something
choices.
outdoors, somebody doing
Right,
something in the gym, and somebody doing a smaller group that's more.
Are you looking for us to accept this evening?
No. No,
Okay.
this
I mean,
is,
this
I think
is
there's a
just
lot of
kind of-
information to,
Yeah.
I hope you would ask every question you have so that you can go and think about it, because you're not voting, we wouldn't
Right.
ask you to vote tonight
Right. Okay.
until the next meeting when you
Okay.
vote on the budget. So it's
Right.
really for us to
Have a
all know
convers-
what it is, why these things are our priority.
Right.
And this is a tough one, I'll tell you that. It's we need both. And sometimes we have an easier decision as an administrative team to say we all just say this is clearly our next thing that we really need to meet students' needs. And this time, we did have 2 things that were neck and neck, but this is what came out from the administrative team as a little bit ahead of the other.
And just to let you know, I know sometimes Mr. Yun will say that, we don't always, and others of you as well, that we're not always saying everything that we do, and we need to continue to say. And I will say that the PE staff has gone, as so many of our teachers do, but has really gone above and beyond. When we have had students in need, and we do have students who are not comfortable in PE classes, they've created another section, and Janelle was a little bit more flexible of a schedule, although she needs every ounce of that time, has taken students under wing for separate PE classes, or to be able to work with these students on a regular basis so that they can meet their requirements. So we've got these kinds of things that are happening and going on quite a bit. We also have another staff member who at times is doing yoga with our students. And again, because it's students who are uncomfortable in a regular PE class or have other issues of whatever it might be. So these are all areas that we're also looking at and saying, we've got needs that we know that we have, that our students have, and it is those 4 years that's so important, and we want to have our students really making those good choices now and really instilling in themselves that pattern. You know, what is it, 20 days or 25 or 30, and it becomes a regular pattern in your life, and it becomes a habit rather than just something that's, you know, yes, I'm going to do my New Year's resolution, and it's now, what, the 6th or 7th of January, so what are we starting? So there's just those aspects that we think are so important. But it is, I mean, it is, for our students, it's another piece that they have to take on, because it is a requirement, if you so vote that in that direction. And it is an expense, because we are looking for another person to come on board. But in the long run, it really truly is for the benefit we feel of our students. So.
Well, it's required, too. May I ask a question to be absolutely clear? Are we considering one full-time? And what price would go along with that?
About 46.5.
What did we put?
46,500. We went with a
46.5 for
B2.
one full-time PE?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
With the one full-time PE teacher too, we've been looking at how the scheduling would work and what it would look like. In addition to offering a required semester for 11th and 12th grade, I was also able to fit into the schedule an AM yoga session for students with emotional problems that are in their life that can't come to phys ed or don't feel comfortable coming to phys ed. They can do morning yoga and kind of learn some relaxation techniques and fulfill their phys ed requirement without feeling uncomfortable or putting more anxiety on their plate than they already have. We also would be able to offer, we have to get approval still, but to offer a before school section of phys ed as well. So one of my staff members would come in from, say, 6:30 to 7:15, and the kids could fulfill their PE requirement before their day even starts if they wanted to have a free period to take another elective or another AP course or kind of keep their schedule more rigorous.
I think that's a really creative part of the solution, because that would, we talked about our students, for example, who like to double or triple up on music courses and not make themselves unavailable during the day, so that they could do something like that if they really wanted to take 3, for example. And I know one of our questions was, is this going to impact the electives choices? But it won't, because students in junior and senior have a directed study, so half the year they would still have the directed study, and the other half the year they would have the wellness.
It would alternate.
Right, yeah. They would have PE one day and directed study the next, so it would be within the same semester. So they would
Same
go to, they would
semester.
have directed studies every other day.
That's it.
Versus what do they have now?
Every day.
Every day.
For one semester. So they would have it every other day for
So
one
this would
semester.
not, that was a really good question.
That was,
A couple
yeah.
people asked us early on, is would this negatively impact the elective program that we're growing? And no, the answer is no, it would not.
Does anybody else have any other questions? The elementary, is this the appropriate time to ask some other questions about the elementary math? How many grades does that serve? Is that from kindergarten through 4th?
Yes, but they don't, they're not able to serve the kindergarten quite so much. So once we get one in each school, they would be able to work with kindergarten classes. I would say more, now it's more 1 through 4.
Okay, so
To be
that,
fair.
okay. So that would include.
They would branch out more then.
Yes.
Okay,
Could reach more people.
okay. Anybody else have any other questions or discussion about things? Okay.
It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about. I think that, both very worthwhile, but, like you said, it was neck and neck, right? So.
It is.
Yeah.
But, we don't want to not take what we're trying to do with high school with wellness
Right.
seriously. But we do have, I would say, as usual, competing priorities. And
Right.
if we're going to work on that idea of continuous improvement, sometimes it's really difficult to take something at one level and something totally different at another level and be able to put them on the same scale. It's difficult. They're both going to be, they both rise to the surface
Right.
as important.
How does the wellness center, though? There's the wellness center at the high school that it was.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty unique.
It is.
Isn't that
they use
serving
it during
our
the day. The
students as
wellness
well?
teachers use it during the day. I would say in the after-school hours, I'm just going to venture my own opinion, because we would like to meet with the Y. we would still like to tweak it a little more, maybe.
I'm an intern, so
Go ahead.
I could tell you how it is. What is this basically? It's just a room. It has all the equipment, all the weights and everything.
Right.
And after school, most of the football players use it, but it's open from 2 to 5, and it's just basically everyone, like, it's open to anyone. You can work out. Teachers are down there sometimes, and there's an intern program also where a lot of students join in and they teach you like personal fitness, and like you learn how to like manage the equipment and learn how to use them and learn how to like kind of give someone a workout, help someone, kind of like go throughout their workout. So yeah.
Other students are teaching you that?
No, the YMCA instructors.
We have a YMCA
Yeah.
staff member, and we have one of our staff members serving as the supervisor, kind of in tandem, believe
From
it or
2 to
not.
5.
Well, not the whole time, but the YMCA person, yes, from 2 to 5. I think we're kind of ready, the YMCA actually this fall, and we just into this fall, would like to meet and just talk again about what are our goals for that that wellness center, and how can we improve what both sides do to kind of move it forward a little bit more. It was a little bit different when we had one staff member always there, from the YMCA side that also works for us during the day. It was a little more consistent. Sometimes what we've been seeing lately is different YMCA staff member people are in there, and there's a little bit more of a rotation, so I don't think the relationships with the students or the consistent programming is as easy to accomplish. So that's a conversation that we need to get back together and discuss.
I do want to give a plug though for Ms. Petrovic. She came in this fall and she's been the supervisor, and there's been a upsurge in female usage, and she's been doing a great job with many staff members and giving them a whole workout plan. So whether they're actually using the center on a regular basis is not always able to be done with after-school help and that kind of a thing, but that certainly came out of all of that as well. So we're just happy to see more girls or more females utilizing that area.
That's great.
Great.
Okay, great. All right. So I guess we'll be discussing this more next time.
Please, that'd be great.
All right, well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your
Before I leave the mic, just a little plug again. Mrs. Abrams, I'm taking your limelight here, but Katie Greer will be speaking tomorrow night at 6:30 here at the high school, so we'd like to put a plug in for everybody who's out there perhaps watching on internet safety, and let's keep our kids safe and how they're using that digital piece and what we can do to help them be safe with it all. So
And the audience is age 18 and over.
18 and over for the
we
evening.
do have NHS babysitters available, is that?
I believe we may. We'll know tomorrow. I believe we might. I'll have to check with NHS.
Check your email from me from a few weeks ago.
Yes,
We're
no, I
waiting
believe
for
NHS was doing that
confirmation
work.
of that, but I'm pretty sure we do.
Yes, the NHS folks
I'm going
were
to go
on
out on a limb.
Thank you.
very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to preliminary discussion of FY Capital Improvement Plan. Ms. Benelli, Mr.
Yes, I'm going to turn this over to Bill. Usually, we don't present the capital plan until the late January meeting, but there are a couple things on there that in our conversations, we decided that we would have a preliminary discussion with you tonight. And so we thought it might be really prudent to have the preliminary discussion tonight, not vote, so that you wouldn't just get one look at it at the end of January, but that we would be able to present some ideas, and Bill could go over some things that he has with you at this point. So
Great.
I know, and
Turn it over
also
to Bill.
sometimes we have enough time to have 3 meetings in January.
sometimes
Which
if we need to.
Yeah.
We can talk about that too, but go ahead, Bill.
Okay, so you have a 5-year plan plus the current year that was actually funded on the first page, FY14. As you see, we had a very successful year last year with the CIP, about just under $660,000 on school-related items, and another $300,000 that were joint effort for replacement of the email and voicemail phone system. Coming forward, and I'm going to point out, one of the issues that we pushed for last year, kind of late in the process, but it got the funding on it, was the wireless infrastructure here at the high school. What happened very favorably for us is when we did that, the company we chose to do with the hotspots themselves basically ran a special right at the time we did it, and it was buy one, get 4 type of a scenario. So we were able to pick up enough of the units to basically give us equipment enough to do not only the high school on the full saturation that we wanted, but also to have the hotspots for the 7th and 8th grade at the Ahern. So we've actually just finished installing the 7th and 8th grade over the Christmas break here, and there's some testing going on right now. But obviously the next plan is to finish the middle school side of it. We think with the money we have and the equipment we've bought so far, that in the FY15 CIP budget, we only need about $40,000 to complete that building. And that would really put us in good stead with the two largest of our buildings and the two that would be using most of the wireless options relative to what the students carry and also what we would provide internally. Obviously, the next steps after that would be to kind of push further down into the elementary levels, but we're still having to look at how we're going to design that system and how that will be used on what level. Will it be on a classroom saturation or will it be more, certain areas that we would actually liven up that way. Our traditional stuff that we're replacing, and we're going to go through at least one more year with this on the main equipment that we buy now. As you know, we go through a rotation of our PCs. Basically a 5-year life on them, so we've been very successful over the last 5 years to have a plan in which we can replace 1/5 of our hardware, software, a few servers end up in there, some switches, that type of gear. It's not just PCs. So that's the $168,750. One of the things we now need to do, though, if we're going to move forward with this wireless environment, is really to increase basically our throughput of data throughout the system. And right now, we don't even, we're not even 1 gig to the desktop requirement, and we're starting to buy all of our switches that will get us to that speed level, but to have that really even work appropriately, we now have to go to a 10 gig system behind it, which moves the data across our fiber. We're fortunate as a town that we own our own fiber network, so we really have a capability out there, but we have to build the infrastructure to handle it. Right now we're looking at what our best guess with our outside consulting firm is about $125,000 a year for 4 years to get that fully up to where it would need to be. And at that point, while we're doing that, we're doing the town side as well. It will be it's one network, so we'll be bringing the town up with us to this upper level. And I think that, obviously will be very important. The issue when you really get into, and it's not wireless, dominant, but what it is really the fact that the more data we're pushing across networks, and the more video streaming, the more interactive type of learning that we do on a regular basis, the more that requires more robust network system. And otherwise you end up with the issues of downtime or very slow responses, which don't really work well when you're in a presentation mode within a classroom. And if you've got 20 classrooms doing different presentations at the same time, you're really pulling the system down. So that's, while we can't do it all at once, and we realize that, our stead was to basically get from the classrooms and work our way backwards now. And as I said, fortunately, the furthest back is the fiber. We already have that. That was a very large expense that the town spent a number of years ago to put in place. So we're really, once we get this network upgrade done, we'll really be in pretty good shape across the entire district. School buses, as you all know, we basically do usually about 2 of the larger 77 passenger buses, and about every other year we're into one of the 22 to 28 passenger buses, which have wheelchairs or not, depending on what the needs are for the year. So we have 2 buses in on this one. We're in a standard rotation on copiers. We do, as much as we all like to think to be paperless, we generate quite a bit of paper. And at this point, we've been going more and more towards networking almost everything we do. We're trying to get away from the small individual printers as best we can. But even that's tough within a classroom. If a teacher's teaching something, they need it right then and there. Not walking down the hall to get it is really a positive
Where the
for them.
students are doing projects on the computer and they need to print out what they're working on, whether it's a draft.
Right.
And you can't print it to a copier down the hall and then wait for a break and leave the kids alone to run down and get their work, and then it's bypassed. So it's mostly for producing the work that the kids are doing in the classroom.
But what we have been successful with all the copiers is all of our copiers now are basically scanners, fax copier devices, so that we're basically eliminating fax machines. We're eliminating other equipment around that we can, which is making us a little bit more productive. And with the scanning capability, obviously, we're able to do a lot more things than we used to be able to do within the classrooms. As I already said, one of the things, the reason this is kind of preliminary at this point, but I wanted to kind of push it out, is one of the big issues that hasn't really been addressed in years. We've been pretty successful. Last year we did some work in the music department. We try to keep up in most of the departments. We haven't really done anything in the tech ed, the shop department area in a number of years, and a lot of their equipment is very old. And we do have a lot of kids that are taking those courses, and so it's what we'd like to propose for the CIP this year, and I've got a meeting on Wednesday with Diane and Ralph DeBona and John Recchia to look at their equipment and what their issues are. Some of it's safety, obviously. You're talking about power equipment, so making sure that it's got all the appropriate safety devices, shut-offs and everything like that, but also there's some equipment that just needs to be replaced. So we're going to try to build a little bit of a budget on that. It obviously will be over $25,000, so that's why it'll be a CIP requirement. But we'd like to float it out there this year because we think it's very important that we try to address that.
I think it's fair to say it's been decades since that was addressed.
I know some of the equipment's well over 20 years in there, so.
Great. Some of them are well over 20 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's commercial equipment. It's built to do that. But again, safety standards have changed, and even what they do within the shops now has changed as far as the type of programs that they're trying to teach children, and the things that they can accomplish in the time frame in which a class is happening. The more sophisticated equipment can help them do things a little bit faster, and the kids have access to that if they get out in the real world and use it. So you want them to have some kind of availability to it while they're here. As you all know, the Burrell School statement of interest was not approved in the last round, which came out last February, and the final decision was made by the MSBA this last December. So obviously we're back in round 2, and it opens up this Friday, and we have until somewhere in March to submit our thing. Obviously, we have most of ours done, but we're going to try to tweak it and make it a little bit more attractive.
Bill, earlier in the meeting, we were talking about that, and what is, if this round, what's the expected timeline on this round? So
same thing.
So it's the fall.
Yeah.
Same thing as last year.
Yeah.
So it's February, March submission,
right,
and fall determinations.
Correct.
Great.
Correct. Obviously, what we'll do with the CIP is the exact same thing we did last year. We're not asking them for the funding of the $275,000. We're putting it on their radar. If the state were to approve it, we would be coming back to the town during the school year to try to keep this thing moving forward. But it's kind of crazy to lock up the money until you know for a fact that you actually have it. But we've been in the past when we've done these type of projects, putting it on their radar up front. They do have some abilities with free cash and other things to be able to make some of these moves down the road on resources. So
we do request that they vote to approve it, but not with the funding source attached immediately.
Okay, that's good. Thanks for that clarification. Okay.
And again, Tony has been very active over at the Burrell, trying to obviously maintain it as best we can while we move forward here. We did do roof work this fall to make sure we'd have some security within minimizing the leaks at least on that side. He's done a lot of ventilation work, replacing motors and things of that nature. But the issue is, and the state has 2 programs. They have a program which they call it's an extensive repair program, which is for windows, roofs, and boiler systems, which this building would qualify very easily for. The problem is if you go forward with that, then you don't get to do the rest of the work. And we believe that the borough is one that needs to really be just like the high school here, where you go kind of, room by room and do everything in one shot. And by doing the other program, we do about 60% of what really needs to be done. We also believe that the borough needs the 2 additional full-size kindergarten rooms, or pre-K rooms actually in this case, that would make that building really functionally better than it is today. So again,
and so it would accommodate the full-size lab. If you remember, we don't have a full-size computer lab there.
Right.
So they have 12 workstations. So it's not just for the preschool; it's to move the preschool a little bit so we can have a full-size lab as well. So it's really a gain of 1 preschool class and a computer lab for the borough.
Right. So again, unfortunately, while I know we probably qualify for that one, quicker or easier, it doesn't really meet the need, and it would stop us from ever really getting them to do the full work there, because you would have done
Right,
a big
sure.
portion of it, but nothing really other than mechanicals, if you will. So I still think the right move is to continue moving forward on the Burrell School as a full renovation expansion program, like we did at the high school here, and hopefully they'd be a little bit more successful this year. As I said, I thought last year that it was a very slim chance we would get it because of the number of people in the queue. I think our chances get a little bit better because now 60 or so more came off the list, and we're now in the list for a year. So hopefully, if we kind of look at our plans and the fact that we have continued to maintain, because they give you kind of points for that, and they see that we are still doing work on this building, trying to preserve it. Hopefully that will win us enough points to get on the list this year. So those are the big things for FY15. As you see, we basically, the deal that we have with Randy and the town side is we will provide a 5-year CIP plan. So we try to project out as best we can other features, and that's where you'll see the Burrell School, as far as full renovation cost to be determined. If we go, my suggestion would be, if we do get the Burrell to go forward at some point, would be to do the HVAC replacement in the IGO and the Taylor at the same time. Even though the Taylor will be a process out, doing the heating system does not prevent us from doing the bigger expansion on that building down the road. And I believe that one could have a very short payback, because basically between what the state will give us on a reimbursement of about 49%, what the utility companies have shown already that they're willing to give us is about another 20 to 25%. The town would end up having to put up about 25% to totally redo the heating systems in 2 buildings that are pretty old heating systems and not very efficient. So, again, this is kind of a timing game that you have to play here to figure out how the state will allow you to get through the process. But the borough is our number one. So I'm not putting anything else out there that's going to kind of, give them an option not to give us the borough first. So.
Well, we bore fruit too with the utility projections that you're just going to have down the road.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're level
Overall, our utilities
better.
are running much better, although this year we got hit colder quicker, so we actually were much higher on our therms in October and November from the gas point of view, but our electricity has continued to drop down, so that's actually made up for the what the gas usage has been. So right now, we're still in net even with a higher demand in heating time. So, I'm very comfortable that everything we've done from an energy point of view, whether it's the heating plants or the lighting plants, have really borne fruit for us as far as keeping our costs down. The town has also done an excellent job on negotiating rates. I have to be honest with you. The last one we just finished off on was an electrical one, and it will take us out another 3 years after this coming year at even better rates than we have today. So that should help us, pretty much here. And we really do run our buildings more and more. I mean, these buildings are especially the Ahern. The Ahern is probably the highest use. This high school is number 2, but I'll tell you, the elementaries are, between PTOs and everything else that are running programs there, they're used quite a bit.
They are used a lot.
7 days a week, and so, between trying to keep them heated and lighted, and, you've
Well, I
got
don't
a
know
lot
if they
of
were
utilities.
heated on Saturday. I went to a hurricane at the chilly there, but that was okay.
Heated's relative on the weekends.
No, this is really helpful. I mean, I think there aren't a lot of surprises from year to year in terms of our requests, in terms of our replacement process for computers, school buses, copiers, and certainly the elementary schools that require renovation. So
I think the big new one is the network switch upgrade, which I
Yeah.
think, as has been proven in the past, if we're proactive in building
Right.
the infrastructure, then we'll have fewer problems down the line. So.
That was actually, if I could, that was actually the one I wanted to ask a question about. Could we entertain the possibility of doing more faster on the network switch?
Yeah.
I mean, as you have it drawn out, it's 4 years to get that project done, right? Which in wireless world is an eternity. We go up significantly in our CIP next year projected because of the borough feasibility. With that moving out of this year, is it physically conceivable to move some of that 4-year projection, some more of it into this year? And I guess what would be the return? Instructionally, what would be the benefit, right?
Well, obviously, the biggest benefit is, this year will be the first year with having the effective ability to have everybody have a wireless device working within the high school. By the end of the year, the middle school will be at that same level. Teachers are going to start to come up pretty quick with the integration specialists, especially pushing the issues on what they have capability-wise with our systems. The teachers are actually very good at all of a sudden starting to find a lot of the resources that are out there, and that's where having the 10 gig backbone will really be good for us, because as they go out and grab those resources and try to bring them in, unless you're doing it in advance and storing it on a server and then running it, that's not obviously an interactive environment when you're doing that. So I think you'll see the demand on the backbone pretty quick here. The way we would do it is we could build out, obviously, and we would build out the high school first and go back through the system, because you don't have to do the entire network in one shot to a 10 gig. You can kind of build it from the core out. But one of the things that we just had a discussion on the other day on, that's why, again, this is a draft, is that right now the core is at the town hall. Obviously, the town hall as a building is questionable as to what's going to happen to it down the road. And the only other place that the fiber was run to have the capability to have the core was the IGO. So one of the things I'm going to actually ask Randy to do is whether or not we can get enough money put together to rerun the core to the high school here, to the data room that we're building. And then we can start with the high school and push backwards. So unfortunately, the CIP budget is a limited budget level on the town side. And we haven't gotten any indication yet, and that's why this is really a draft, from Randy as to what will be available on the CIP side yet. So if there were, another $75,000 that they could make available in this year, we definitely would take it to make this move faster. But without any direction from Randy at this point, I'm not sure if it's 600,000, 500,000, what it is at this point. So
I guess that'd be my personal request, would be, as a committee, we consider, can we get this done faster? And I would rationalize that it smooths our annual CIP projection from this year to next year, since the borough feasibility was moved out. But if we can't, I understand CIP is a limited pot, but I think there's some real instructional benefit to accelerate our wireless plan if we can.
And it covers a lot of people. I mean, you need a fat pipe to begin with. Today's pipe is going to be a drinking straw in 5 years, right? And we haven't even got a shopping list yet from the tech ed team. We're going to be plugging things into that. These copy machines, which really aren't copiers anymore, they're office system machines, are going to be doing chatter. So we really do need the infrastructure to be strong and coming fast. I agree with you.
Thanks.
Not that
So maybe we
whatever.
can take that into consideration when you come back, Bill,
Yep.
with this.
Sure.
Because as you said,
We
this
might
is
have
a
more
draft.
information by then that would make us more comfortable, maybe going after a bigger number, which is,
Okay, good.
I think that's
that
why
makes
we
sense.
appreciate the feedback, because I think you're making some good points. 4 years is a long time.
Yeah, it is, totally. All right.
Some of the things existing now.
Anything else, Bill, or are
Existing
we?
then.
Nope, that's on the CIP, that's pretty much
Okay.
it.
All right, why don't we just roll right into the FY budget update?
Actually, did you want to go over, one other thing you asked me to bring forward was the grants and revolving?
Oh, yeah,
yes,
that's,
thanks.
yeah. I thought that was part of the other one, okay.
Now, being my third year, I guess. One of the things on revolving accounts, let's start with the grants. What I showed you here is a history of 3 years of what we've received and what we're projecting.
That was great, by the way, Bill. I like that.
Obviously, you can see the big swing was the Ed Jobs, American Reinvestment Recovery Act funding that was in FY11 and FY12 has dropped off, and that was actually, we put that money into the town side budget. We funded basically health insurances rather than run it through the school budget, because we knew it was a very limited budget back then, time-wise. But as you can see, with most of the other grants we have, a number of them have actually evaporated. Quite a few have continually gone down on an annual basis. So even without the Ed Jobs grant, you know, we were in that $1.2 million range. Now we're down to a $1.1 million, and it's continuing to erode every single year. So it's not something that I think we have to be very, very cautious of how we depend on it. But and obviously we're using every penny of it as we move forward here. But we're also being very cognizant of the fact that it's not going to stay constant, and it's definitely not growing. Fortunately, the state aid has kind of made up some of the differences each year in what we receive off the cherry sheet, but it's, without that, we would really kind of have some issues.
I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, but I was actually pleased or surprised, I guess, it hasn't eroded more. I looked at this when I saw it as good news, or at least surprising. Admittedly, as you said, without that ARA grant, we've dropped down significantly from that year, but otherwise, I think you've done a good job protecting as much as we can.
And a lot of this, I mean, if you look back, it was the 5 years before this, it was on a growing trend.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're kind of doing this now going down the other side, and really with the federal, especially, you can see I kind of broke it down for you so you can see which ones were federal grants versus which ones are state grants. The federal ones really are the ones that, every year it's a question whether or not they're going to be out there and to what level.
Which is why about 5 to 6 years ago, I think the biggest shocker was two or three of the federal grants were lost completely. So there were other title grants in here, 2D, Title IV, and they all just disappeared. So I think that's always our fear, is that we don't want to be, we want to be reliant upon the grants because it helps our local budget, but we don't want to be so over-reliant on them that if something were to happen to one of them, like we've seen happen before, that we just stop functioning in that area. So it's always a tightrope, a bit of a tightrope.
On the revolving accounts, I think just a precursor to this, most of you know this already, but each revolving account has specific requirements on what you can use it for and how you can use it. And so, as an example, on the athletic revolving, that's money brought in by the games, whether it's football, basketball, or whatever, but it can only be used back either to pay for officials or salaries or expenses relating to the athletic environment. Off-duty transportation, obviously same thing, so you'll see that we'll do an offset there towards fuel costs, because obviously we're transporting and using our fuel to do that. Building rental is probably one of the ones that we have the highest level of options with, but as you can see over the last 2 years, you guys have given us the authority to spend $62,000 on the track. We effectively funded the track replacement ourselves. We got $2,500 from the town side for $65,000, but $62,500 came from our side, and we totally redone the track at the Ahern this last fall. So that's up and running for next spring. We are using $25,000 of this account towards the security camera systems that we're working on, and the turf field project, you agreed to $75,000. So we've used in the last year, 2 years, basically $162,000 of this fund, and we've really dropped it down. What I'm going to be really looking for is probably another $50,000 of that to be used towards the back fields this year, so that we can get it all done and have the entire field complex complete in one shot here. And that would bring us down to probably the lowest that's been in years. But again, we continue to rent the building, so we will build it back up, and probably just not be able to use it for much of anything else next year. But I think we've kind of done everything to put money back in to get these facilities up to the way they should be. And we get a lot of usage. Even that track gets used constantly by the public. I don't care when you go by there, there's always somebody, walking or using it, which is fine. That's what it was designed for. The tuition revolving accounts, pre-K, kindergarten, basically we've been pulling those down and using more and more to offset whether it's out-of-district tuitions or electric costs within the district. So you can see that the pre-K will have gone from 526 down to 300,000 at the end of this year. The reason it got up to 526 was that there was a $205,000 payment that came in. It was the FY11 ARRA funding that went in there, and before that it was some not BICO, but
Spoke Collaborative was
when they
closed,
right.
And each member district got their share. It went into that.
So we only bring in about 127,000 a year, and as you can see, in most typical years we're spending about 250. So we are pulling that down. I would say that if we bring it down to about 200,000, that's kind of your cushion there to make sure you can run your program. The way I've kind of projected this last year, and you bought into it last year, but obviously it's open every year, is that in the tuition accounts and the circuit breaker especially, as long as we can carry 1 year's worth of requirement, then we've safeguarded ourselves from a potential budget issue, and it would give us 1 more year to resolve something if we had to move forward. Circuit breaker especially, because that is your only relief valve when it comes to any kind of an extraordinary sped cost. So if we had someone move in tomorrow that we're not budgeting for, and it ends up being an out-of-state $216,000 placement, this is the only place I can go. I can't go back to the town and say, this is what I need. I have at least a valve here to be able to cover that cost and move forward. So that is not one you want to run down. But as you can see, I'm trying to manage that right to that 1 year expense. We spent about $475,000 out of the circuit breaker account. The last couple years, we've been very successful in our charge on getting every cent back from the state, because that's a lag. Basically, what we spend this year, we'll get certified at the end of the year, and we'll get that funding next year on a proration basis as to how much. So we've been very successful. As you saw, we got $633,000 this year. It's the most we've gotten in a number of years, and it's not really with a much higher sped cost. So I think we're doing pretty well as how we manage that. So I think that those 3 accounts now we've pulled down, but we're going to hold to the 1 year level. Extended day, again, we're hitting that pretty hard with other expenses throughout the district. So I'm projecting at the end of this year we'll be down to about $25,000. But again, it's really covering electric costs for the district. We've spent $25,000 on the camera system out of there, and we spent $27,000 recently for the generator system that's going in over at the Taylor. Again, all things they benefit from as well, so it works out well. But we're using these resources and pulling them down, something that has had the advisory committee and town looking at before. So I think we're doing exactly what they've asked us to do. We're pulling them down to a reasonable level. Adult ed, obviously, we fluctuate. That's basically a year's program cost. So we have that right now. And summer school is about the same. As you can see, we've dropped that a little bit too as far as the ending balance, but we try to keep to what would a 1 year program cost would be going forward. And then that's basically, there's a few minor gift accounts and things of that nature, but they are very specific as far as their usage, and they're very limited numbers. So.
Thank you, Bill. I think it's important for us to do these every year as people come watching at home and understanding where these balances, how they're fluctuating, and like you said, the rationale behind, how we can use them. So, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Where do we know, or is there a crystal ball that lets us know? Deb made a great point on how we try not to be over-reliant on these grants, but we also have to do it at the same time, something like that. Where are we most vulnerable to loss or dramatic reductions that might not do more than sting, but bruise or break something if we were to lose a big grant in this list here? Do we know, or?
Yeah, no, I'd say a lot of them are entitlement grants, so we're not as worried about those. But I would say the one that we talk about the most is, we don't know what's happening with it, is the 2A, which is the improving educator quality, which we're now appropriately using for professional development and other things like that. I think that one right now is the most vulnerable.
That's federal, huh?
Information.
And just, it's interesting today, I received from the federal government, they're asking exactly what we're spending those dollars on and the professional development piece, and it had to be teased out to the number of educators, how much money, the number of administrators. So I was so thankful that that was moved to professional development, as it should be, in order to turn that in. But they're also looking to see how are states using, those dollars.
As they should be. It's,
Right.
It's federal money.
If you remember last year, we had a
Yes, I
classroom
remember
position,
that. Yes.
and it had bothered me for a number of years. We moved into the grant, into the regular budget.
Right.
Because this grant, the intent of this grant had changed years ago, and Foxborough hadn't changed with it. So when you saw that today, because I just put it right on your desk to fill out, I was relieved as well that we didn't have to fill out that that federal survey saying, how are you using this grant, for whom, what kinds of professional development, what areas, is it technology, is it this, is it that, that we did not, because there was a question, are you using it for a teacher's salary? And I was thankful as well, I had the same reaction that, as we looked at it, and then I said, just put that right on Amy's desk, that we could actually check the box that said no, because just in time.
So what's the long-term consequence if we get whacked on it?
Well, what you would see is us asking for, you saw us asking for a small increase in the high school professional development we presented in December. And what you'd see is we've not gone up in the district-wide professional development line, which is minuscule, because we now have this. But you would see us going up in a fairly serious way on the district-wide professional development, because most of the things that Amy is trying to accomplish that's systemic is now coming from that grant. So,
well, I think
that's, I think, our biggest vulnerability.
What I think is interesting is, again, our teaching and learning highlight tonight was about professional development and how that money is being put to use by having our professional teachers go out. You saw an example of what they're doing with their professional development, how it is coming back into the classroom to the students. I mean, we see it all the time. So I think it's so critical to keep the momentum going in terms of academic achievement.
Thanks,
All
Jen.
right.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
I don't think the others are as vulnerable, I would say.
That's good.
I think that's probably it right there. Which is a good chunk. It's about $47,000, so that would pinch.
That's one of the
You don't want
positions
pinches.
and salaries
You
we
don't want
just bouncing
pinches.
around.
Okay, do you-
46.5.
Anything else? Okay, we're going to go to the budget update now.
Small change from last month. Basically, we're at about 76,000 before. Now we're at about 89,000 is what our projected surplus is. It's mostly the generated difference is really coming from a salary account. We were delayed on replacing one of our IT department positions that left in beginning of August. We didn't replace until beginning of November. So, no, beginning of December. So basically that gap difference is what's generating the difference here. And, you know, other than that, our expenses are pretty much in check. The changes in the expense side really have to do with movements of money from the expense side up to the salary side. So as you can see on the lower section there, the school to career, we moved $18,000 from an expense line up to the salary line for the position change. And obviously the position cost us a little bit more because we went to 5 days instead of 4 days. So the salary line, you know, had a little bit of a hit there, but obviously had enough cushion to handle it. The athletic department temporary staff, we actually are ahead of the town on this. We have moved every one of our positions that most of which were 1099 in the past now are all, you know, appropriately classified under W-2 employees, so we don't really have an issue, but the federal government is really coming down hard now on that particular line, and I think the town side, you know, is happy to see that we're already ahead of that, and so we should
They
eliminate
want
the issue.
everybody W-2.
Well, if there's only certain ones that can be 1099, and really most of the staff that we have are under our control. And if they're under your control, then they're technically supposed to be a W-2 employee. So we already had made that move. So that's about 20,000 that moved out of an expense line up to a salary line. And then
Bill, I have a question about that. What does that mean, temporary staff?
Remember when we moved the high school college counselor? And he was an expense, he was listed in the expense
Yes,
line.
yes.
That's what he's talking about.
But this is athletic.
temporary staff is your scorekeepers,
sorry.
your you know, at athletic games, your ticket takers
Okay,
and stuff like
thank
that.
you.
They're
Okay.
not staff that's normally on
Okay.
all year long, but they come on and they do short buckets of time
Okay.
for us.
Just
that
didn't
type
know
of
what,
thing.
I thought that was a position or something.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, no,
No, yeah.
It's
Sorry
actually
if I was
quite a few
unclear.
people. It's
Okay.
it's about 30 people that work
Okay.
small, you know, amount of hours here and there, but, you know, still
That
are,
can be 1099.
no, they can't.
Oh, they
They're
cannot?
all W-2s now.
They're all
So,
W-2s.
So again, we're down to a couple that are 1099s, but they're legally 1099, so I'm okay there. And then we had one issue with one of the professional development that we didn't quite account for properly at the end of the year, so we actually took a $17,000 hit on the one of the grant sides there from our expense side. So we had to make up that difference obviously to cover that account. So I think overall, our expenses are basically in line at this point, and it's really the differentials coming out of our salary accounts. When you consider the fact that we have a number of positions that change, Deb and Amy were working with replacing people up until October, November this year. So you end up with a lot of fluctuations where you might have somebody on a long-term sub, even though you're getting ready to hire the final person. There is a differential. So for every one of those that happens, you'll end up with a few dollars here and there that you move forward. So, and also, don't forget, we were in negotiations last year, so there was a few dollars that was left over from what we were holding, not much, that also would end up into this bucket here. So at this point in the year, on a close to $30 million budget, to have $80,000, I'm really not, I'm not giddy about it, but I'm also not concerned. So I think we've got just about the right cushion right now to no matter what happens through the rest of the year. So
Okay, you need a motion to approve the
Yes,
budget
please.
tonight?
I'll make that motion to approve the
Yeah.
fiscal year 14 budget summary statement.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0, thank you. All right, moving on to approval of the 2014-2015 school calendar.
It's
Ellen.
that happy time
Oh
of year
my
again, where we look at the school calendar, and we change colors every year so we don't get them confused. So next year it'll be yellow. Last year it was green, this year it's blue, just for your education. The only real change we've looked at this with our union leadership, actually, who are meeting this afternoon, and they were supposed to let me know if everything was okay with it. So I'm assuming no news was good news. And we've met with our administrative team, we've gone over this. So the only change really came from our teachers. If you look at November, prior to this, the elementary conferences were the week before Thanksgiving, so 19, 20, 21 timeframe. And middle and high school had their conferences on Monday and Tuesday. And that seems to have worked really, really well. So our teachers asked if we could try all of the conferences on Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, which would really allow all K through 12 classes to stay in full swing the week of the 17th through the 21st, and then have the half days on the 2 days before Thanksgiving, which is a short week anyway, and use those days for all the K-12 conferences. So we talked a little bit about the pros and cons. One of the pros being that there's more consistent instruction going on throughout the whole week. The other, in terms of families and parents, we considered the pros and cons to be that if you have many children, you might not be able to squeeze them all in, but for most people, they make special arrangements with certain teachers anyway. The teachers will meet with you at another time. And then we thought it might help parents in some ways, in that if you're taking off work to accomplish your child's parent conferences, rather than taking a half day the week before, another half day for your secondary student, you could get them all done on one day or on one half day, because they do stagger them, and some go into the evenings and some end at 5. So we thought that might not be a bad thing for parents. And the other thing was that in the old schedule, you'd have elementary students dismissed early the week before, but not your older children who might be able to be home caring for the younger siblings.
that's a good point.
And now they'd all be home. So we actually thought there were more pros to it. It was proposed by our teachers, and we, as an administrative team, thought it was worth a try.
Okay.
So we would like to suggest that we hold all of our K through 12 conferences on Monday and Tuesday, the 24th and 25th, and then we'll evaluate it, try it out for a year, see if it works, see how people felt about it, and see how we do. Other than that, you'll see everything looking very traditional as we have approached the calendar in Foxborough, which is that all of the staff comes back for 3 days at the end of August, prior to Labor Day. Students start on the Tuesday following Labor Day, which next year would be September 2. And then our other 2 professional development days during the year would be the Friday before the long weekend in October, Columbus Day weekend. And only in presidential election years do we move it to the election day in November to accommodate the greater electoral numbers. And our second day would be, it's typically near the end of term 2 or about the mid-year mark in January, which you see that. We normally might have it the week before like we do this year, but we'd like to end the term kind of nice and neat, and so that counted out quite nicely, so we moved the PD day to a week later, and that seems to be fine with everybody so far. Sneaker?
Monday?
No, it's we're gonna leave it Friday, the 30th.
Okay. Yeah, I think,
Oh, that's the holiday, sorry.
Do you need is today
want-
the first draft? This is just the draft,
The
right?
earlier we approve it, the earlier the high school can start putting in term ending dates to start the course selection.
I think last year, Katie, we approved it at the first viewing.
Yeah, okay.
Can I bring up one question first? Yeah, I think this looks fine, and I didn't come here with this notion, but it occurs to me as you took us through your comments about the teacher conferences.
Yeah.
I know my own experience at the Ahern, and I think that of many parents, is it's so rushed, it's like speed dating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've weighed this before, but just remind me, if we wanted a third early release day to allow more time, how would that impact our schedule?
For conferences, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, that would have to be negotiated through our contract negotiations.
So there'd be a union consideration.
Oh, certainly,
Yeah.
yes.
And in terms of our school calendar, it would add a day, in essence, onto our calendar?
No, because
Would
if
it?
you're in session for half day, that counts.
Okay.
Bruce, I think you bring up a really good point.
I don't know if it's
about-
that way at the high school. I don't
It
know
is.
if
It's
the-
quick at the high school.
Well, it's not only quick, they're never on time. I mean, just because, it's really hard to be, that's the only thing I'm a little concerned about, is that if a parent has to, so they have 3 children, they're going from elementary to middle to high school, it might be a little tricky. I don't know if it'd be nice to maybe we're discussing this week. I don't know whether we just want to get some.
I can tell you from my
Yeah?
experience with my mom, because I have a sister in the middle school. She actually went to the middle school, came here, went back to the middle school, came here, and went back, just because times were different and the times were longer at the the period. Like they went from 5 to 8 at the middle school when they went
Yes, they are
5 to
different.
7 here. So it was like
We stagger them a little bit, actually,
yeah.
to help parents, believe it
Yeah.
or not. So if they were both 5 to 7, that's a shorter window of time, versus if we can end the high school at 7 and end the middle school at 8 or whatever it is, then it makes it a little bit easier. But you don't have to vote on it tonight. I think the next meeting would be fine if you want to think about it. I don't really have a problem with that.
I'll marinate on it, and I like the speed dating comment. Not that the quality of the interaction is bad. I don't mean that sarcastically, and I like to
Yeah.
joke sometimes, but the quality of interaction is good, but it's so damn fast sometimes, I don't even know why I went sometimes, for one teacher or another, because if you're running around the hall, and I have to run, and I'm not a natural athlete, as many of you may disagree, but.
Well, I think that some of the schools are, they're large. I mean, the middle school is large, the high school is large, so to navigate your way from one end of the building to the other takes some time. And I think that might be part of the reason why, there's.
I totally see your perspective, but on the other side, I want to remind parents that in the middle school, they teach at least 50 children in 5 and 6. And if you're in a house system, you teach 100 to 125. And at the high school, you teach 100
Oh, yes.
to 125.
Oh, yes.
So to expect lengthy conferences with all of those parents is unrealistic. So
Of course.
the intent is to have a quick conference, and if all is well, fine. But if you need to make another appointment at another time when you can get more in depth about any concern, then you do, and I know our faculty is very accommodating for that. So it is designed to be a quick touch base. And one of the things we were hoping about this year is with the advent of an open house at the high school, where you have a little bit more of a meet and greet, then you already know the person, and when you come back for conferences, hopefully that can be expedited a little bit more. So they are working on things that sort of increase that interaction, but I don't think, to your point, while it's a good idea, I don't think a third half day is going to allow you to have quality conferences with 100 parents. I think they're quality, but not the length that you might be imagining is possible.
Well, and just to be clear, again, I'm giving this a ton of thought, but I guess I wasn't envisioning a lengthier conference where we would have higher expectations of more details from teachers.
Okay.
I'm not proposing that. I think what I'm wondering, marinating, is would it be a little more sane for the teachers and the parents if we just spread it out? So I'm not saying go from a 5-minute to a 20-minute and show us work. I'm saying a 5-minute to a 8-minute that runs a little smoother, that gives you a little bit more time. And I guess what I would question is, would there be incremental benefit from parents having a little more substantial, more thoughtful conversation. No more, it doesn't have to be more data, but just, so why don't we marinate and we
Well,
can.
the calendar is a separate issue from how the conferences run, because quite honestly, without negotiating, we can't change the way conferences are run at this table. Can't. So I think that's a longer discussion that could be quite valuable for the future, but I think that one of the things, for example, I'll try to not quite answer it, but try to get to a point. One of the things we discussed is the Ahern is now using the, what's the name of it? They use a parent scheduler that you can go online and schedule your child's conferences. So we actually discussed if we could get all the schools using the same scheduler, then when you go online, you would be able to more or less control the times rather than the old days where one kid come home with a slip that they filled out with times. I'm like, how did you think that was going to work? I remember those days too. And then the running back and forth. So that seems to be working really well at the Ahern. So we've talked about and at the high school. So if we can maybe, if we're going to go this type of 2 days, if we get everybody using that, at least it would seem a little bit more organized, and the parent would be able to control how they feel the schedule is going to work for them.
I think from our experience, that tool worked quite well.
Okay.
I think what happens, though, it seems the same subject areas every year, and it's usually math, the conversation that the teacher wants to have and wants to spend is longer than the allocated time.
Oh.
So what you see is, and please share your perspectives as well, you see 20 or 25 parents who are queued up outside of math waiting, and now what happens is they say, well, wait a minute, let me go see if I can run and stay on track by getting the English done and get back to math in time.
It brings back memories.
So it's, I think the tool's good, I think the content's good, and I don't think that's parents prolonging it necessarily. I'm
No,
sure there's
I
always
agree.
some of it, but
I think both sides probably.
Oh, you prolong it.
But
It's your
it
fault.
sounds like
There you go.
It sounds like we're talking about two different issues.
Yes,
The one
that can't be addressed in the calendar.
Yeah, the one
They
that
really
we need
honestly
to
can't
focus
be.
on tonight is really the date.
Yes.
And because we can't increase the days, and for me, I see the problem that was just discussed, which is how families are going to be able to negotiate two different schools with two different timings. Because I will tell you, just going on to the high school this year, you go on and everybody else has gone on. So if you think you're going to get, successive appointments, you won't. And so, now you're also going to be not only trying to negotiate one school, but now another school. And I just.
Well, you do now. Middle and high school have always been the same days.
Oh, they have.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. I
yes.
meant elementary.
But now
I'm
you have
sorry. Yes.
elementary. So
Right,
I
right.
think for the parent who has students at 3 levels, that's where the challenge is going to be.
But I think even just two students, one at the high school and then one at the elementary.
That's always been.
No, but it's going to be on the same day.
Or
So
one day
therefore-
and then the next day. You could pick one for Monday. I don't know.
and
We
you
thought
know-
it'd be worth a try,
Yeah,
but I would say
yeah.
if you want to wait and vote on this, that's fine, because I really contractually needed to hear from the association today, and I didn't. But
Okay.
I'm assuming no news is usually good news, so if you can go ahead and vote on it tonight, and if they had another consideration, I could bring it back at the next meeting, or you can wait and vote at the next meeting. I just know that the high school can't get, we have to actually put the term dates in before kids can
Right.
start selecting courses. So the sooner we act, the sooner the high school.
I think if
you
it's
guys
not
can
going to
pick your
make a
courses and get them
I think if
scheduled.
it's not going to make a difference, I think we should vote on this the next time. It'll give parents at home who have either, watched this evening, if they have concerns, to contact us. And if not, we can make our own
They can
decisions.
certainly do that.
Yeah.
We think it's worth a try, and that's what we thought.
I would agree with waiting. I don't have a problem with waiting. I'd kind of like to hear what my people have to say about this. But I think that, I don't know if I have people, but I do think the trade-off between having the 5 half days in a row and then the Thanksgiving break with your darling children, I think that you might get a lot of positive feedback
That's
about
true.
having Monday and Tuesday. Yes, it's going to be a couple of very busy days, especially for parents who have children in all 3 schools, and we do have a lot of parents who do, and I respect that, but I also, my personal experience has been that the teachers are very flexible.
Yes.
I know my son's 6th grade teachers actually offered morning conferences throughout the month of November. I went in and met with them from 7:30 to 7:45, so they gave me 15 minutes. And I know I wasn't the only one. There were other parents who were able to meet with them in morning conferences. So I think our teachers are very flexible. I do think the 7th and 8th grade conferences, I know they're 2 separate topics, but I agree with Bruce, it is a little hectic. It would be nice to have, maybe 8 minutes instead of 5, but I understand that's a conversation for, the next contract negotiation, but I do agree with you for what it's worth. But I wouldn't mind waiting another couple weeks if it's not going
I'll wait.
to
I
really
like to wait.
impact the high school schedule that
Okay.
much.
Oh, I think it's fine to wait.
Okay, okay, we'll put that on the next agenda then. And hopefully, that one, okay. So now, other matters. I have one other matter. Do you like to go first or not? I can't remember.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't, Happy New Year.
Okay, Happy New
No,
Year.
my only other matter was Diana saying Katie Greer tomorrow night,
Okay.
6:30 at the high school auditorium. Internet safety, age 18 and over, it's going to be fabulous.
Awesome, be there.
I don't have anything
Okay.
else.
The one that I had was, we had talked last time about the Racino, and John Gray was here, and as we talked about in the minutes, and so I did not hear anything back. Okay, so I don't have any new information to present, but I know Steve had told me he had gone to a meeting, so.
Well, as many folks may know, the Board of Selectmen actually passed and signed a surrounding community agreement without any input from the schools. I was at the meeting. I respect the Board of Selectmen and all the work that they have to do, but there was something noted by the town attorney that I thought was very interesting, and that is our Racino Negotiation Committee put in some references to the schools that were, I guess, patently not recognized or agreed to, what was called specific references to school enrollment costs. And I don't have a problem with that being rejected. What I do have a problem with is that that wasn't this board's recommendation. That was the Racino Committee's recommendation with citizen input. And I think that we should exhaust every option in these uncharted, unprecedented rules and regulations with the Mass Gaming Commission in our own town, we're all volunteers, and see if we can get back into some kind of negotiation, or at least have some conversation or input. And I would recommend that we continue digging into this, or someone digs into it, bi-directionally. Like, we don't wait for a call, we make a call or make calls or something. And I have copies of the agreement if folks want to have it, but it was described in the paper by one selectman as being nebulous, and I couldn't agree more. I don't think this has anything to do with the schools in here that helps us at all, should we need it. So I would recommend this board continue looking into options to talk more about this and get in alignment and in proper communication with the town, even if it's the trains left the station and we missed it. But,
Well, okay, so you had made copies for.
well, I have
the-
copies if
yeah.
you'd like them. It's
Yeah.
a public document. You
Yeah,
can
so
get
I
it.
would like to just.
If you'd like to read it, if
distribute
you
those,
haven't.
Just so, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at this.
They were just put
but-
there.
Right. But,
Sorry.
what?
I
Okay.
just passed.
That's the signed agreement. so-
Yeah, so, I mean, this is the agreement, so I don't know what the will is of the committee.
Yeah,
Whether-
whatever the will of the committee is.
Has the Racino been assigned, number one, to Plainville?
No.
It may not even get it, right?
It may not, or it may. Yes, that's correct. I'm afraid I'm not going to stop beating this drum until I get an answer from the Board of Selectmen or the town lawyer or something. We were not at the table for these negotiations. And when one item was brought up, we showed our cards before the negotiations
What do
were
you mean?
complete.
What do you mean?
When the Racino Committee recommended that there be a possible 10 students coming into the town, it was said in this meeting that we could absorb or fluctuate with those 10 students. Well, we just gave our hand away. You know.
You're saying we, the committee, did?
No, it was discussed in open forum. It was
Steve,
discussed in
there is a-
open
there
forum.
is- Yeah, but there is enough room for us to absorb 50 students.
There you go again. We're negotiating. We don't
Yes, but the
tell.
kind- yeah, but
You
the-
can't ask for something that you don't need, though. If we have the capacity, we don't
I leave it to
need
the will of the
mitigation.
committee. I've said my piece.
I guess I don't see a need for it that you do. I understand where you're coming from, but unless we have a huge influx of people into this town from the Racino, we have capacity right now to
What
absorb
if we
those.
got 4 that had the sped needs that was just discussed in the budget?
That could happen anyway.
And the state circuit breaker would pick up a large portion of it.
But right now.
I've
no,
said
the
my
kind-
piece.
Okay, the kind of jobs that the Racino is going to be offering are not highly skilled jobs that would permit people to move into Foxborough to buy houses and pay high rents just to send their kids to school here.
We're building 2040B units, Beverly, right now on Community Way. And that's good. That's increasing the town's baseline of affordable housing.
Isn't part of this that I gleaned was that they're going to offer the jobs to people in Foxborough anyway?
No, that
they-
doesn't
they're
have to do
surrounding-
with the school systems. My concerns are about the influx of students and the public safety aspects. And if there's one individual, boy, girl, man, woman, or child, that's affected by the scope of this board's authority, that's even so much as splashed by a puddle, I'm going to be mad as a lion. And we've had no say at these negotiations. None. Zero. And that's only my point. So if we want to put it down as a group and with consensus, that's fine. But I don't see I don't know what options there are if the board wants to move forward with these negotiations, the board, and see if we want to enter into them and if we can again. There's no precedence or very few precedents for any of these types of community agreements. It's a totally new frontier in Massachusetts for legal and committees and boards and machination and everything else. Mass Gaming Commission. I was at the Mass Gaming Commission 4 weeks ago over in Plainville. It was like 4 or 5 people from Foxborough. Only one voiced a concern.
Well,
One.
I think we do need to stay focused on whether we, as a committee, want to, proceed with what you're
That's right.
recommending,
That's all I'm
Steve.
asking. Do
And,
we
I mean,
wanna
I think
pursue
the details of it are just things that I haven't even reviewed this or read this, so I don't know. I would love to just get some input from Deb and Bill, too, if you have any thoughts. Or
Well, we
any
can
other
put it on the
committee.
agenda for the next meeting and talk about it.
I don't see a need for us to stir up a can of worms. I don't think we're going to be affected to the
I respectfully disagree,
I know you do.
strongly.
I think, Steve, I think you've been a good champion for this on behalf of the committee. I don't have any issue with our having discussed it a few times now.
Mhm.
I think it is a little curious that we did have a member of the selectmen here at our last meeting who I think agreed that we'd have some input or have some dialogue, and then no fault of his own, I don't think, and then all of a sudden there wasn't an announcement of an agreement. That did take me a little by surprise as well. Having said that, I think, I don't know that I would personally vote for going back into negotiation, but I don't know that I feel strongly against it either. So I keep learning and listening and thinking. I think, though, parliamentary-wise, I think if you want to move us beyond here, I think, we need to bring a motion to the table at some point and then either vote it or not. I think the fact we've had lack of that voting
I've tried to get it on the
indicates.
agenda numerous times, Bruce.
So,
We don't feel a need that it should be on the agenda.
Then make a motion and let's vote on it, either now or in the future.
Well, if you do remember, we did have it on the agenda under other matters at our last meeting, just to be clear. It wasn't a separate item, but it was identified in the agenda. So now I'm bringing it up to bring back that I don't have more information because I didn't receive any.
Right.
So what are you suggesting, Bruce?
I don't think anyone here feels compelled to make a motion that I'm hearing. I think, though, that if you want to talk with the chair outside of this public meeting and
Chair of what?
our chair, and talk about whether there is interest in some kind of, bringing some kind of motion to the table, you have every right to do that.
I'll bring a motion to the table then that we consider going back to the Board of Selectmen and finding out what options this board has to communicate or negotiate an addendum, or ask even so far, if it's possible, that the Board of Selectmen can reconsider their vote and reopen the negotiation.
Okay.
It may be an option, it may not be. But I would motion that the board consider, and we can vote on this, whether or not we want to pursue any further action on the surrounding community agreement already signed by the Foxborough Board of Selectmen with, what do they call them? What's the organization called? SF Gaming. And I motion that's the motion. Do we want to pursue it further as a board?
So I think you should be clear, and then I think we should see if there's a second. I don't mean Katie to speak for you.
No,
Please.
no, it's fine.
So Steve, the first thing I heard you say was you'd like to propose a motion that someone from our group go back to the Board of Selectmen to see if there are any options. And then the
For the
second,
appropriate people.
and then the
because I'm
second-
not familiar with mass gaming law.
and then the second time you worded it, you said, I think we should motion to pursue. So I think we need to be clear on what it is your motion. Then I think we need to see if there's a second, and if there is, then I think we need to vote, and if there isn't, then I think it dies. I think, just based on my experience as chair.
I think that we need to have more clarity about what you want that motion to be. Do you want the motion for this committee, or designee from this?
Let me write it down. Let me write it down.
What?
Have them restate it so we can all write it down and be sure.
Let me
'cause
write it down.
I know that would be
Do
helpful
you want
to
to,
Janet.
do you want to, like, make a motion for a designee of this committee to contact the Board of Selectmen to find out information about whether the mid, well, I don't know.
Does he have
Okay.
have him restate it? He's writing it right now. so
I
maybe
think
help.
I haven't read this agreement. All
Yeah,
I've
I
read
haven't.
it was what was in the reporter, which I'm sure was an accurate summary. But
I think we
before
ought
we
to
make
at
any
least-
decisions, I would like to just sit down and read this agreement. So I would like to move that we table this discussion for the next meeting.
And put it on as
Put
an
it on
agenda,
as agenda.
agenda item to review.
I would
this.
second that motion.
Okay.
I would second that motion. We definitely have to
We
read up
table
on
this
this.
for tonight. The least we can do is take. the
Right,
time
because
to
we're
read
just
that.
receiving this evening, and I always think it's very important to have information, ahead of time before we make decisions
Steve,
about
I
things.
respect your opinion. I want to
No,
marinate about it.
no,
Yeah.
again, this is something
Okay.
that, again, we have to be informed.
All right, so we've got a
But-
first, a second.
And I'll second that.
Any further
That it
discussion on
goes
this
back for
motion?
future
This
discussion.
is tabled?
Well, the motion is to, yes, but
To
that
table
it'll,
this for tonight.
to table this tonight, and
And-
we'll put it on the agenda for the next
For
meeting.
the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I will second that motion.
Okay. Any other further discussion about it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0, great. Okay, so we'll include that on our next agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other matters? No?
I just would like to mention that somebody who worked for 30 years, many people were very fond of her. She did a lot of contribution. Lee Prosser just passed away. She worked for 30 years in the system. And I had some of her children. She had 4 beautiful daughters go through the entire system. It's pancreatic cancer. So very sad. And I would like to wish everybody a Happy New Year.
Thank
Sitting
you.
at the table and at home.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0, thank you, good night.
Thank you.